Chapter 626 Know Your Role. Scarface lost his sense of reason in his rage, as he decided to use his strongest move that took a large toll on his body to deal with Rudra. Enraged, he said, "You think I'm a pushover? You think I'm weak? Do you even know what they call me? I'm the unparalleled warrior Scarface, the leader of the blood merchants and the servant of Lucifer. And it'll be damned if I were toyed by a boy like you. If you think you are so strong, then come take my strongest move head on. Survive. Then we will see if you have the balls to talk trash." Silence spread throughout the battlefield as everyone awaited Rudra's response to this challenge. A egoistic person would undoubtedly choose to take the enemy's attack head-on, and try to overcome it with raw power to prove to the world how amazing he was. But that would be a foolish and dumb choice to make. Rudra, on the other hand, was not at all an egoistic or senseless person, as he simply did not care about what his public image was. Allowing an enemy to unleash his best move was just plain stupid, and he was having none of it. Choosing to close in and give Scarface no room for making his big move, Rudra charged towards the man. However, despite Scarface declaring this to be a 1-versus-1 duel, at this moment, the shaman interrupted the fight as he threw lots of acidic potions towards Rudra's movement path. Sizzle! 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 Rudra dodged the incoming moves, as a series of boos rained from the crowd, and the siege fire that had lasted for so long crumpled as fights broke out between both sides. Rudra squinted his eyes towards the shaman, as the shaman had a dark purple fog coming out of all his bodily holes. Apparently in the time that Rudra was fighting Scarface one-on-one, the shaman was secretly preparing his ultimate move to launch on Rudra. Unlike assault classes that could unleash powerful moves quite quickly, the shaman needed time and preparation to prepare a big move, as his class was meant for summoning creatures and cursing others, and not for 1v1 fighting. Nonetheless, as Rudra faced him and diverted his attention towards him, he launched the strongest move in his arsenal. Dark move, Cerberus Strike! The fog came out faster from his body, as it assimilated to form a three-faced dog with massive chains around his neck. Awooh! The dogs howled as the fog solidified and formed an actual solid figure. The dog was massive in size, about 3 times the size of an average troll, and it charged towards Rudra with its fangs bare. Right as Rudra prepared to cross his sword and prepared to combat the incoming dog, a powerful aura tingled his senses. Scarface had completed the preparation for his ultimate move, and as Rudra momentarily glanced to his right, he saw a massive Chinese dragon, with no wings, but a long slender body that seemed to go on for kilometers, coming out of the sword of Scarface. Ultimate move, Dragon Emperor Destruction. Scarface unleashed his own ultimate move as the massive dragon tore through space and time itself, converting the ground beneath into a canyon as it traveled at breakneck speed towards Rudra's location. Before Rudra could even complete his thoughts, the giant Cerberus with its jaw wide open came crunching down on Rudra, who was forced to block his jaws using both his swords. However, this one brief moment was all that Scarface's attack needed to land on an unguarded Rudra, as he was dragged along with a terrifying attack inside the dragon's mouth. The move tore through half of Purple Haze City, as it destroyed everything in its path from Sector 1 through 3. As a 2.6 kilometers long line of destruction, and countless destroyed buildings were left in its wake. Guildmaster! The screams of the elite soldiers rang throughout the city, as their eyes bulged out of their sockets, seeing the destruction of the move. Although nobody had seen Rudra dying, just who could survive such a terrifying move? Was Shikuni dead? Ha ha ha! Pant pant ha ha cough cough! Scarface laughed hysterically, as he walked over to the shaman and gave him a high five. It's done! Good job, the shaman said with a smile as Scarface buckled over his knees and fell on the floor panting. I killed Shikuni of the elites! I killed your king! Scarface said, as he felt the aftereffects of using a Tier 5 move that was way beyond the capabilities of his body. A wide smile on his face, and under the drowning cheers of the blood merchants, it seemed as if the invincible Shikuni had finally fallen. The elite soldiers lost grips on their swords as morale plunged to an all-time low following the defeat of their guild master. Clang! 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 Many swords and shields dropped to the floor as some soldiers started to surrender and accept their fate of defeat, as Scarface taunted them all. Shikuni! 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 I can't hear you bastards say his name anymore. Come in, chant it. Chant it. Call me a bitch if you dare. Come in. Raising his hands in the air, he mocked the elites for their chants as the blood merchant army laughed and slaughtered the weak-willed elites, as the tide of the war changed completely. Meanwhile on the forums, Rudra's death was followed by a flood of messages on the forums, as the netizens had mixed reactions to it. Holy sh***, guys. What was that move? It tore the city in half. Shikuni is toast. Rip. Shikuni. You fought well. Calming guys. You all hype Shikuni too much. Calling him invincible. Calling him the #1 player. In the end, he's just another mortal who died, like a bitch when fastened someone stronger. It's unpopular opinion. But Shikuni is overrated. Shikuni thinks of himself as a James Bond kind of guy. Like he alone can solve all problems. It was dumb of him to fight against Scarface alone. Now he's dead. That was the coolest move I've ever seen in my life. Rip Shikuni. LOL. A funny death. Shikuni dead. The elites will lose soon. This war is over. Time to sleep. R.I.P. Shikuni. Rip. Rip. The netizens trashed Rudra, as the dead deserved no respect in a dog-eat-dog world. These were the same people who praised him when he took on the dark faction rankers and became victorious. Yet when he lost they turned their backs on him, calling him overrated. Such was life. As the winners were hailed as heroes, whereas the losers did not even deserve sympathy. The question, however, was, is he really dead? / bonus chapter for hitting the GT target. Good job everyone. Let's keep this pace up. / Chapter 627 Shikuni is dead? On the eastern battlefield. Neatwit and his army of ducks were causing chaos in the eastern side of the Purple Haze city town when they heard a loud explosion that rattled half the city. As Neatwit glanced over his shoulder, he saw a massive green dragon stretching for kilometers destroy a series of buildings. As it came from the northern end of the battlefield and destroyed everything up till the eastern battlefield. Although Neatwit had no idea about why a massive dragon was rampaging through the city. He had a bad premonition about it. Busy with his own battles. He could not check out the crash site where the dragon eventually stopped. But not more than 5 minutes later a piece of extremely disturbing news entered his ears. A blood merchant bannerman was running around the town screaming at the top of his lungs. Hear, 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 the leader of the elites! The king of this kingdom, Shikuni One Knight, has been killed at the hands of Almighty Commander Scarface. Hear, hear, hear! The elites' morale plunged when this news fell on their ears, as many could not believe the bannerman's words. However, everyone had seen the massive dragon attack. And adding the two events up, many connected the events to realize Shikuni may really be dead. Neatwit's eyes widened in shock at the news, as he felt like vomiting from his stomach. Convulsing, he said weakly, Guildmaster? On the western battlefield. As Johnny heard the news, he looked towards the skies and let out a deep sigh. It was truly tragic news if Rudra had really fallen, and it only meant that the chances of an elite victory became that much lower. However, unlike Neatwit, who was paralyzed by the news, Johnny had seen a lot of ups and downs in life and lost a lot of important friends and colleagues. He was not incapacitated by this news and took it upon himself to work even harder to offset Rudra's absence. Shouting loudly, he acted like a real commander as he rallied the words. Here, men! The Guildmaster has carried the guild on his back for long enough. This time let us show that we can hold out on our own. For Shikuni! For Shikuni! Johnny steered the emotional damage into fuel for fighting as the troops on the western end entered a state of natural berserkness as they tore through the enemies, as they resolved to honor their dead guildmaster. The world media. The live war win predictor showed the chances of an elite victory at 26% before Rudra's death. As the miraculous sequence of events lead many to believe that this war may also be one of the true elite specials where they find a way out. But following Rudra's death, the win predictor quickly fell by a whopping 21%. Down to only 5% in a matter of 5 minutes, and was still tumbling down every second. The massive dragon attack was played on loop as scenes were shown of how Rudra was hit head-on from that move and dragged through 2.5 kilometers of buildings and concrete. Hailed as the #1 player of the northern continent by a few. Rudra had a massive chip on his shoulder, as while there could be a debate on whether or not he was the best assaulter, there was no question in anybody's mind that he was one of the best. His ability was universally recognized, and his genius in war tactics was said to be unparalleled. Many accredited the elite's success to his own personal success. Hence, it was no wonder the chances of victory fell so far. So fast. Without Rudra, the world doubted if an elite victory was possible. Scarface's gloating after killing Rudra was shown as small children across the world started to cry and grown men felt fear in their hearts, looking at that monster. Although Rudra had fallen to his devastating move, there was no other player in Omega who could boast taking that move head-on and still love to tell the tale. Completely unparalleled and terrifying. The Dragon Emperor Destruction was a move that would be seen on loop for many generations to come. Meanwhile, the southern battlefield. The southern battlefield led by Karna was faring the best of all 4 battlefields, as although their kill count was lower, they were losing much less men as compared to other battlefronts, and were able to hold out their lines for much longer without falling back. Karna's way of leadership was a stark contrast to Rudra's, as Karna strongly believed that the best defense was the ultimate offense. Hence, he led his army to always lay back and wait for the opportunity to strike. Keeping oneself safe was the highest priority under his command, and the groups were assigned to watch each other's backs. When the flagmen came bearing the news to the southern side of town and announced that Rudra was dead, it was a huge morale blow for the southern forces, as everyone started to murmur and gossip about it. Rudra was borderline a holy figure inside the elite guild, and his image was one that was absolutely untouchable. It was because of this image that the pinch of losing their leader was a huge one. Is it true? Is guild leader really dead? No way. It can't be true. It can't be. The guild master is invincible. He can't be defeated. Open your eyes to reality, guys. The guild master. He has fallen. What are we doing if the guild master is dead? Who will stop the enemy leader then? While the elites panicked, the blood merchants cheered, as they said the nastiest things about Shikuni. Ha! Scarface showed them who the boss is. It was only a matter of time. Commander Scarface is invincible under tier 5. Who the hell did Shikuni think he was to fight our commander? PFFTT, of course he is dead. Shikuni is a weakling. And so are all of you. Our leader killed your leader, and we will kill you. Karna, who heard such chatted, immediately felt his blood boil, as his eyes turned red. What a load of bullshit! Everyone's attention quickly gathered around Karna. I can understand if these blood merchant idiots believe in this propaganda. But hearing our own guild members believe in this bullshit, I'm livid. Using a grand move, Karna stabbed his great sword in the ground below and blew everyone in a 20-meter radius away. If you guys actually believe that Guild Master Shikuni can fall in battle, then I don't even know where you go off calling yourself an elite. Karna spouted words with passion. A mere Scarface thinks he can defeat our Guild Master? No chance. You bring one Scarface or you bring 100. I can put my life on the line and declare proudly that our Guild Master can defeat 100 of them and still walk out of the fight as if nothing has happened. Karna looked towards the sky and closed his eyes as he balled his hands into a fist. Don't fall for their propaganda. Has the Guild Master ever failed the guild? Has he ever been defeated? Has he ever fallen in a fight? There is yet to be a mortal that is born on this continent that can defeat our Guild Master, let alone Scarface. Even if Lucifer himself descends on Middle Earth, he can't kill our Guild Master. So don't you turn your back on him. Karna spouted words like venom. But every single elite could feel the passion behind those words as they resounded deep within their souls. Everyone else may believe in the propaganda, but Karna knew Rudra the best. And he knew that Rudra could not die when the guild needed him the most. If he's dead, he will crawl his way out of the depths of hell and come back to life. But I swear, my guildmates, in 30 minutes, Scarface will lose his life. I can guarantee that with my own life. The elites on the southern side all heeded Karna's words, and a fire was lit under them as well. As while the blood merchants thought what Karna said was just empty bullshit, Karna himself believed every word he said 200%. Finally, he murmured as nobody could hear what he was saying. What the hell are you doing? You bastard. How dare you let them talk trash about you? After the war, you and me will have a chat about this. // A big shout out to Savanthi for the 5,000 coin magic castle. Thank you so much for the patronage. I really appreciate it. Bonus chapter for the super gift by Savanthi. Please thank him in the comments for this one. // Chapter 628, The Man, the Myth, the Legend. Ha ha ha. I killed Shikuni. Scarface screamed at the top of his lungs as he rejoiced at the achievement. In his entire life, he had never felt such pressure from such a weaker opponent, as had he not defeated Shikuni when he did. He would have received a psychological trauma that would last him his entire life. Bannerman, go run throughout the city, announce the death of Shikuni, and break the morale of the elite bastards. Let them know that their leader has fallen by my hands. Scarface said in glee, as he felt proud for using such a dirty trick to stir chaos. The bannermen instantly obeyed their leader and spread out throughout the city, announcing the message that Shikuni of the elites was dead. However, not even 2 minutes after the bannermen left, a series of loud murmurs and cheers went up from the elite camp. Scarface, who was still recuperating from his injuries, felt surprised at this noise of joy, as he cleaned his ears to make sure that he wasn't mistaking screams of anguish as joy. But he wasn't. The elites were celebrating as if Archangel Michael himself had descended to help them. What happened? Why are those bunch so noisy again? Scarface asked with an annoyed voice to one of his subordinates. But that man just would not answer. SSSS. The soldier stuttered as his skin turned white as if he had seen a ghost. SSS what? Has the cat got your tongue? Scarface yelled at him, angry at the lack of backbone that the soldier was showing. "Shikuni!" the soldier said, as instantly goosebumps arose on Scarface's skin as his brain instantly rejected the notion that it was even remotely possible. However, as the crowd parted, and the familiar sight of a man wearing regal black robes and doom armor came in view, Scarface felt the fear of God put inside him for the first time in his life. Shikuni was alive. A few moments ago, Rudra looked towards the massive dragon that was inbound his way, and he knew at that very moment that he had FD up. His first instinct was to use Blink, but the move was still on cooldown, and he could not evade the incoming strike. To make the matters even worse, the stupid three-headed dog bit down on him at that very moment, and he needed to use both his swords to defend against him, in order to not get eaten whole by the giant dog. But while he was successful in not becoming dog treat, the same could not be said about defending against the dragon. Dragon Emperor Destruction was the ultimate move of Scarface, and it had tier 5 capabilities. Although not a peak tier 5 attack like Rudra's Holy Lance, the move contained enough power to tear a city in half, and one-shot any tier 4 player regardless of their class. It was a move that came with a toll on Scarface's body, as while he was not completely incapacitated like Rudra was when he used Holy Lance at tier 3, it was still very taxing on his body to use the move, as it completely depleted his stamina, and put a lot of strain on his muscles. Hence, when the formidable attack hit Rudra squarely, and without Rudra even able to pull out his sword to defend against it, most assumed that Rudra was dead. The initial shock of getting hit by the attack was high. As every inch of Rudra's body felt it, it was pierced by a pricking needle, as he was blasted away with the energy attack as his HP depleted rapidly. Everything looked yellow to Rudra for a bit, as he was calmly surrounded by energy that was destructive in nature and corroding his very fabric of being. Is this how it ends? Thought Rudra. However, the reincarnator inside him refused to accept this fate, as failure was not an option. He had gotten way too far in his dream to become the strongest guild master to falter now. He had to find a way. He needed to survive this blast somehow. Rudra's mind started to work at full capacity, as he used the entirety of his knowledge of the game Omega to find a way out of this situation. Firstly, he broke down the problem into bits, and thought about how to solve the individual problems. Rudra's HP was at a critical dark orange and depleting fast, while he could not move a muscle of his body due to the attack being too powerful for him to mobilize at all. This meant that he could not drink an HP potion, which meant that he needed an alternative to restore strength. Using Solar Restore, Rudra used the last bit of charge left in his Sun God's bracelet as he converted solar energy into HP, as he recovered 50% of his lost HP overall. The Doom armor was now soaked in his own blood, also started to convert blood into HP, slowly adding a passive regeneration method for him, as Rudra also used the move Darkness Absorb randomly towards the ground below in hopes of it hitting an unfortunate soldier beneath, which luckily for him did, adding another bit of HP to his health bar, recovering back to a dark green color. Rudra managed a moment's breathing room, as although he was still losing a lot of HP and fast, he had a few seconds now before he ran out completely. The second priority now was to somehow mount a defense against the attack, but with him unable to move even an inch of his muscles, it was proving to be a rather difficult task. Rudra knew that if he could just bring out his Death Knight's shield out, he could easily block 70% of the incoming damage. But the question was how? Choosing to use Knight's Focus, Rudra slowed down the flow of time itself, as inside his altered time flow, he was finally able to move inside the confines of the energy blast that he was trapped in. Pulling out a shield, he balled up into a small cannonball, as he hid behind his shield, as he was blasted through various buildings one after another. Pack! 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 Bam! Back! Rudra crashed through uncountable buildings, as his back felt incredibly sore after hitting brick after brick after brick, until he was eventually blasted all the way across 3 sectors under a collapsed building, surviving with only 7% of his HP bar left, with a critical condition of several broken bones and bleed damage. Rudra was alive, but just barely. "Ag my hand!" Rudra groaned in pain as he looked at his left hand that usually held Siege Breaker, that was shattered to pieces in the several collisions that he suffered, whereas his spine felt like a lump of jelly instead of solid bones. Since time dilation was still in effect, Rudra felt all the pain in even exaggerated proportions, as it felt as if he had used the Holy Lance all over again, with the priority being to live. Rudra somehow managed to pop open a max HP potion with one hand, as he gulped it down in one go. Rudra's HP rose steadily. However, even though the max HP was restored, it did not change the fact that he had several broken bones, and his condition was far from his peak skills. Him surviving the blast was a miracle in itself, as his ancient grade shield was reduced to a piece of junk with a giant hole, and his doom armor has a visible crater inside of it. He was bleeding profusely, and had broken through as many bones as buildings, and was still buried under a pile of rubble. Although he had pulled off a miracle, was he of any use in his broke state? If Rudra were an ordinary man, he would have been gripped in anguish and despair. But while Rudra was an ordinary man, Shakuni most certainly wasn't. A smile curled up on Shakuni's lips as he said, "Thank God my greatest asset is my mind and not my body. Furball come!" A very intelligent and elegant fox with a brilliant golden red coat of fur appeared beside Rudra, as it licked its master's wounds and snuggled around his chest. "Good girl! Good girl!" Ha ha ha. Rudra laughed as he felt ticklish. But even the laughter felt like a pain to him. "Coughing blood," he said. "Listen to me carefully, girl. It all depends on you now. // I'm very happy to announce that this book has been selected as the Reader's Choice Book of the Year for 2021-2022, and it's one of the most proud moments of my life. But it's not a win for me. It's a win for all of us. Because it's because of you guys that I have received this honor, as the book is as much yours as it is mine. It has been an incredible journey over the past year, and to celebrate we revert back to the original cover that I started the book with back in 2021. Hope you like the vintage looks. // Chapter 629 Invincible. Wearing the doom armor and cracking his neck from side to side, Shakuni stood over a collapsed wall section as he looked down on Scarface, whose face turned white to see that Shakuni was still alive. "You? How is this possible?" Scarface was having a meltdown as he saw Shakuni still alive, and well after taking his ultimate attack head-on. However, his shock only increased as soon as second Shakuni popped up 10 meters beside the first one, wearing the same armor and looking like the spitting image of the first one. "Another Shakuni?" Scarface felt like he was hallucinating now, as he slapped his face multiple times to feel the pain and understand that it's real. Soon a third Shakuni popped up, and then a fourth, and a fifth, until finally there were 10 Shakunis standing in a queue in front of him. Scarface rubbed his eyes multiple times as every time he opened it again, a new Shakuni would form. For a second, he misunderstood the new Shakunis popping as a power of his own creation. Afraid to even blink again in fear that an 11th one would pop up, he stared towards the shaman wide-eyed as he asked, "Did you see them too?" Scarface was afraid that he was going balloony, that the Dragon Emperor Destruction had put too much stress on his body, and now his brain wasn't functioning right anymore. However, the shaman saw the same thing that Scarface did, and in a grim voice, he replied, "Yes, I see them too." A part of Scarface was relieved that he had not gone senile. However, the other part of him was even more worried now that the thing he feared to be true was actually true. Pointing towards the line of Shakuni standing, he said, "You? How are you still alive?" However, instead of a response, the Shakuni standing at the middle just inhaled a breath of air and spit out a humongous-sized fire that covered a distance of at least 50 meters. Sizzle! 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 Countless blood merchant soldiers were burnt to ashes by the attack, while the shaman had to protect Scarface, since he himself was incapable of mounting a proper defense. "Of course he breathes fire now, too. Ha ha ha!" murmured Scarface as he hid behind the shaman in the face of the attack, as he found his mental state deteriorating after Shakuni kept pulling out move after move from his bag. Not only the shaman, the entire world that was watching became shocked to see Rudra's return to the battlefield, as the moment seemed surreal to many, although many assumed it to be a trick from the elites and something along the lines of having a fake Shakuni. However, just the image of Rudra walking onto the battlefield gave many the adrenaline rush. Hashtag he is back was the most used hashtag on the forums alongside the hashtag invincible. The shaman's POV. The shaman knew that the Shakuni-looking opponents in front of him were not the real thing, as none of them had the aura of death on them. However, their appearance made it hard to tell that they were fake. While he could have easily told Scarface that the ones standing in front were all fakes, he did not do so, as he had a much more devious plan of his own in his mind which needed Scarface to fall into depravity. For a second the shaman believed it to be a doppelganger technique. But then one of the 10 used a massive fireball attack, and his notion of a doppelganger was broken as doppelgangers could not use attacks. The part that irritated the shaman the most, however, was the fact that he had to protect Scarface as of now, as the man was practically useless under the circumstances after having his strength sapped by the move that he used. However, in such danger lied an unprecedented opportunity for the shaman, as he licked his lips in anticipation thinking of the plan. Although he could ward off the fire easily, he purposefully let the attack hit him after a while, as he feigned taking damage. "Burn! Ugh!" The shaman grunted as best as he could, as he pretended to have received severe burns from the attack as Scarface panicked a bit more. In his overconfidence, Scarface had only taken the shaman to the northern battlefield as a Tier 4 backup with all the other generals deployed on other battlefronts. At this moment, he truly regretted that decision, as he had truly underestimated Shikuni and overestimated his own strength. As now, he was defenseless. "We must retreat," he said finally with a grim voice, as he regained his mental stability a bit. He needed to survive and heal and take out Shikuni another day. But the shaman had other plans in mind. "We can't retreat. He's too strong," the shaman said, panic in his voice as he looked toward Scarface in urgency. "There's no other choice. I'm not a coward shaman, but I don't wish to throw my life away either. I underestimated his resilience, but I'm not weaker than him at my prime. A few hours of rest and healing, and I can take him on again and put him down for good," Scarface said, as he stood up once more. "I can't cover your retreat. You're on your own," the shaman said coldly. "What? You crazy? You can't take him on without me. Your physical abilities are dog shit. You need to retreat to save your own too. Scarface tried to knock some sense into the shaman, as he signaled a few soldiers to rush towards the Shikunis. However, Shikuni just snapped his fingers, and from nowhere a massive 20 meters high wave of flame just washed over the battlefield. The shaman once again pulled off a defensive spell, only for it to be broken a few moments later, and the two to be hit by a wave of fire. "God F damn ****. Scarface cursed as he could smack such Tier 3 attacks with a swish of his sword. But now he was useless. "Okay, what's your plan?" Frustrated beyond reason, he asked the shaman for his plan as the latter looked at him expressionlessly and said, "We merge bodies." Meanwhile, Rudra had sent Furball and 9 of his doppelgangers to the battlefield after giving Furball the instruction to use Switch to launch him into the battlefield at the right moment. Clutching both his swords, he looked over at the broken rocks that were suspended 5 inches above his body, as he calmly circulated the mana in his body, as per the cultivation manual he practiced, and was with every cycle he completed, he could feel the pain easing inside his body. After looking at his status screen, he knew that while he was well and alive, it would take a lot of work by a team of healers to restore him to his peak state, as bone healing magic could only be performed by the priest class, and there was no potion that could perform complete bone recovery. Maybe I should fund research into bone recovery potion. Could be profitable, Rudra thought as he tried to keep his mind distracted from the mind-boggling pain he was feeling at the moment. Oddly, buried under the rubble, Rudra found a moment's peace for the first time in the last few months, as he could finally think about something other than the impending war. The war was here. He had used all his cards just like he planned to, and he had brought the elites from an unwinnable position to a fairly winnable position. His only remaining job now was to kill as many Tier 4 generals as possible to even out the playing field and tilt the odds towards an elite victory. There were no more complicated strategies to pull off. No more major traps. It was just plain and simple fighting that was left for him to do. Unlike others who despised war and bloodshed, Rudra found it exciting. He courted wars, and the bloodlust made him feel alive. He was the perfect leader for this very reason, as there were little to no morale boundaries that bound him in the war, and he did not grow tired of it. Although Scarface managed to injure him into this pitiful state, Rudra did not despair at his lost ability. Instead, he was happy to be alive, and have a chance at facing Scarface again. Smiling, he murmured, "Next time I see you, I take your head." // Congratulations all for hitting the GT target. As with every target completion, there will be a bonus chapter that follows, and I will try to deliver it today itself. If we somehow manage to end the month within top 10 priv rankings, I will organize a mass release in the month of June with a significant price drop. So every ticket you guys put up will matter a lot, especially in the double GT event. / Chapter 630, a merger. "You want us to what?" Scarface felt the very idea to merge bodies with the shaman repulsive, as he wanted to reject it without a second thought. "You are useless, and I cannot protect us. If we try to retreat, we will both be slaughtered by Shikuni. But if we merge bodies, I have a way to stack our stats and make the merger stronger than both of us combined." The shaman tried to lure Scarface into joining bodies with him. "How does it work? Is it temporary? I cannot join bodies with you forever," Scarface asked in panic, as he started to consider the option. "Of course it's temporary, and it comes with a debuff after we separate as well. We may even not be able to control our bodies for the first few days, as it would feel odd and foreign." The shaman tried to make the merger sound more realistic, as there was no way that such power did not come without a price. Scarface's inner instinct screamed at him to reject the offer, But the allure of defeating Shikuni for once, and for all, was too large for him to pass on. Should he get the added stats of the shaman, he was 100% sure that he could easily take down Shikuni. And after that, win this war for once and for all. As for the struggle after that, it was still acceptable. Blinded by the rage for Shikuni in his heart, Scarface gave in to the temptation in his moment of weakness, as he agreed to the shaman for this temporary merger. Little did he know, it would be the worst decision he would ever make in his life. You are not tricking me, right? I would still be in control of the body, right? Scarface double-checked with the shaman regarding this detail. And the shaman lied with a straight face about it. Of course. Although if you die, I die too. So just don't die. Scarface still had his reservations. But facing another wave of fire, the shaman quickly put up a defensive barrier around the two and slid both of his own wrists to begin the ceremony. A pool of blood and green slimy liquid dropped on the ground below as the shaman had his eyes roll to the back of his head as he chanted in ancient language. Using the fallen blood, he started to write ancient runes on Scarface's head and his face as he prepared the other for the merger. Initially, Scarface did not suspect a thing. But when the armor did not crack or even show any signs of damage against the fire attack this time around, he started to feel suspicious. The same attack had shattered the barrier twice before this time. So why was it standing strong now? Unless the shaman was tricking him the other two times? Stop! I changed my mind, Scarface said as he got up on his feet. He did not trust the shaman enough to entrust such an foreign procedure to him. But to his dismay, this did not work out well for him at all. The shaman stomped his feet and summoned ugly-looking Tier 3 orcs from the ground below, as those creatures forcefully pinned Scarface on the ground. And in his weakened state, he was not strong enough to challenge their grip. What are you doing? Have you lost your mind, shaman? Let me go! Let me go! Scarface screamed and struggled. But it was all for naught, as the shaman kept chanting and drenching Scarface's body in all sorts of blood and weird green liquid. I'm the representative of Lucifer. I'm carrying out his will. This will not end well for you. I'm warning you, shaman. This will not end well for you. Scarface tried to threaten the shaman in the name of Lucifer, but the shaman paid him no heed. Slitting his own throat, the shaman forcefully lip-locked Scarface. What happened next was that the shaman's body visibly started to dry up as he seemed to vomit his guts into Scarface's body, as the latter's body started to shine with power. In a mere 3 minutes, the shaman's body became a pile of steaming bones, while Scarface's body lied still on the ground without a single muscle twitching. When Scarface finally opened his eyes, the expression on his face was nothing like the charismatic and arrogant leader of the blood merchant group, but instead, it was a maniacal smile of the psychotic shaman. After 100 years, a young and powerful body. Mwahahaha. He laughed and clenched his own fists as he felt the power coursing through his veins. Already at the pseudo Tier 5 power level, the shaman felt like he was the king of the world. Meanwhile, on the other battlefronts, news that Shikuni was alive traveled fast to the other battlefronts, as the elites felt a sense of relief followed by a subsequent burst of rage at the information. The relief of knowing that Rudra was alive was huge, while the rage of the merchants feeding them with min-information was even larger. How dare you lie to me? Neefwit said in anger, as he and his ducks rampaged through the eastern battlefield following the news, slaughtering everything in their path. When Johnny English received the news, he only said a "attaboy" with a smile as he went back to work, his heart feeling relief that the kid was okay. However, Karna borderline lost his mind when he heard the news. Although he had given the bold speech just moments ago, and he desperately wanted that Shikuni be alive, he did not have a 100% faith in his life himself. As a leader, although he could not appear weak, internally, he was just a normal man who was only putting up a strong front. Hence, when the news that Shikuni was alive came to the southern end, Karna could not help but grin widely. Well, if he wasn't at least that strong, then I might as well become the guild master, Karna said, as he switched from one sword style fighting to 3-sword style. Clenching his teeth against his third sword, Karna resolved to make the merchants who spread such misinformation pay. Closing his eyes, he finally let his emotions run loose as he became a one-man killing machine that absolutely bulldozed his way through any and every opponent blocking his path. / bonus chapter for hitting the GT target. Good job, everyone. / Chapter 631 Boss is back. The shaman swinched around Scarface's blade and could feel the power of the blade as he mock-slashed once, only to kill 20 soldiers ahead with his power. Not bad. Not bad at all, the shaman said as he charged in towards one of the Shikuni clones, as he dodged the incoming flame attack. Slash. The Shikuni he attacking vaporized to thin air as nothing remained of his body. What? The shaman was shocked to see that the sword passed through Shikune's body, as if it was butter, as he looked perplexed at what was going on. Making his way through, he killed one doppelganger after another, until 9 out of 10 Shikune had been killed. So it's you, the shaman said, as it charged towards Furball dressed as Shikune, as he swung his sword wildly at the neck of Furball. Poof! Furball instantly changed form, as she shrunk back down to her 9-tailed fox form, with all 9 of her tails being on display against the demon in front of her. A fox? The shaman said, as it tried to stomp Furball to death. But to his horror, just as he raised his feet, Furball changed her size to her real form, as the 50 feet tall majestic 9-tailed beast stood out in her full glory. Fire blast! Breathing a terrifying fire, Furball forced the shaman to retreat 20 meters before he was able to defend against the brunt of the attack. What a crafty by asterisk. The shaman complimented Furball, as he retorted with a magical attack of his own. Come for Cerberus! The shaman summoned the same purple fog as he summoned Cerberus to fight Furball, and soon the purple mist solidified to form an ugly purple dog. Furball looked at her opponent and snorted in arrogance as she looked towards the moon above and started to gather the power of the moonlight. Cerberus charged towards Furball. However, it was met with a terrifying moon blast attack. Boom! A rotating beam of moonlight pierced through Cerberus's body as if it was made of paper, and went on to attack the shaman, who was blasted away after the attack hit it head-on. A tier 4 attack? Just who are you? The shaman found the creature in front of it extremely interesting, as in his life, he had never seen or heard of a fox as powerful as this one that could produce tier 4 attacks. As far as he knew, species capable of reaching tier 4 and above could not be contracted as pets, as they would resist such binding contracts with their life. Meanwhile, the forums. OMG! Shikune was a fox all along. Exposed. Where is Shikune? Huh? I bet all my money on an elite win as soon as Shikune popped back up on the screens. Who is this fox? What the hell is going on? OMG. So cute. I love that fox so much. OMG. I want one of those. Look at its golden fur. I'm dead. My life is complete. Look at that cuteness. Girls, I have a same looking golden retriever. The only difference is it's got one tail. For those who warm my bed, petting the dog is free. Shut up, perv. Shoo. The entire forums were confused as to what exactly was going on at the moment. Back in battle. Ha! Strong, very strong. But not quite as much as me. The shaman started to chant in ancient language, as a magical circle started to form around Furball's feet. Chains of hell! Chains with pointy ends shot out of the ground, as they tried to pierce into Furball's body. But Furball moved her tails around vehemently, as she constricted the chains with her tails, and prevented a capture. Don't resist, you fool. Because if I can't make you mine, I will kill you. Holding the sword firmly, the shaman looked into Scarface's memory reserves as he unleashed a tier 4 attack of his own. Grand Slam! The shaman said, as he performed a series of sword poses before pulling a strong overhead strike that created a powerful attack headed straight towards Furball. Millions of girls watching worldwide screamed, "New!" at the top of their lungs at this moment, as the pretty kitty cat was about to get hurt. Countless men cursed the shaman with all their hearts as he attempted to hurt the epitome of cuteness that the giant ball of fur was. However, just as it looked as the attack would hit Furball, an unexpected switch happened, as gone was the 50-foot-tall Nine Tails, and in place of her was a 6-feet-tall man who had his sword pulled back ready to meet the attack head-on. Full counter! The attack was sent back with triple the speed and damage as the shaman was scared senseless at the sudden turn of events. Boom! A loud explosion was created as the return move hit the battlefield and debris and shockwave propagated to all sides, although the shaman put up a protective barrier to defend himself. This time, the attack actually managed to penetrate his full power defenses as he lost 6% of his HP to the attack, as he reeled back from the shock. In front of him stood a man oozing with the aura of death as he stared at him coldly with a murderous glare. Looking at his visage, the shaman felt his blood run cold as goosebumps arose on his skin. This was Shikune, the real one. There was no doubt about it. Grim Reaper in his right hand, and Siege Breaker in his left, wearing the Doom armor as the black fumes of death rose around him. The real Shikune was here. You dare attack him, why? Furball? Rudra said, incomprehensible anger in his voice. / Alright guys. Next GT target is 2,400. We are still a little away from hitting it, so let's get there as soon as possible for a bonus chapter. Hope you enjoyed this one. Please leave a comment below if you did. / Chapter 632. A warrior is forged, not born. Ridra was far from his peak capabilities. If he were to be honest with himself, his left hand only had 10% of its mobility, while his back hurt like hell. Although his HP was above 99%, his physical condition would restrict his usage of moves and abilities. At this moment, he was effectively reduced from 2 sword fight style to 1 sword fight style, as although he held Siege Breaker in his left arm, it was nothing more than a showpiece. To make matters even worse, the shaman in Scarface's body was emitting power even greater than what Scarface emitted by himself. Not being there to witness the body possession, Ridra was baffled to see the sudden power up as an uneasy feeling settled in his heart. Using the move, Darkness Blast, he sent a powerful ball of darkness towards the shaman, who deflected it easily. You dare use darkness attacks on me, boy? Do you even know how I was raised? How long I have lived in the shadows? Your boss may be the god of death, but I am the god of darkness, the shaman said as he produced 10 simultaneous darkness blasts and sent them all towards Ridra. Thankfully, Ridra's legs were still mobile and capable of sustaining his top speed, as he was able to weave through the attacks and counter with a thunder blast of his own. Cap him. Thunder struck the shaman's chest as a damage of 25,000 appeared on the shaman's head. But he only swatted on the sizzling burn as to make it stop. 25,000 was a drop in a bucket with people nearing 1,000,000 in total HP, and did not affect one at all. However, the fact that such a lousy attack connected was shocking to Ridra, as he started to notice the flaws in the shaman's performance. From the way that Scarface was talking to his killer instincts, as a fighter everything had changed since Ridra had arrived back at the battlefield. Although the power that the shaman exuded was undoubtedly much greater than Scarface's, Ridra understood that the man underneath was not a trained warrior, a weakness that was meant to be exploited. Ridra charged in towards the shaman, who swung his sword too strongly and missed the chance to change its trajectory, as Ridra bit under it to sneak straight below his jaw. Bam! A 180 degrees perfect front split kick sent the shaman flying, as he could not counter against the attack clinically enough to evade it in time. With this kick, Ridra's suspicion turned into reality, as he started to mount all sorts of pressure on the shaman. Nothing about Ridra's fighting style was orthodox, as he used a southpaw lean-back fight style, throwing in kicks in between sword jabs, as the shaman had a hard time keeping up with Ridra despite having superior speed and reflexes. The shaman believed that taking over Scarface's body, he could just read the other party's move set and perform everything that he could. However, in high-speed fights as this one, there was no time to read moves. There was no obvious opening to exploit. It was simply a dance of death. A warrior's instincts are not forged in a day. It takes years of intense battles to finally have the killer instincts to defend and counter, as naturally as breathing. Ridra, who had spent 2 lifetimes honing his craft, was a much more experienced fighter in one-on-one combat rather than the shaman. As although the shaman was in Scarface's body, he could not see the gaps in Ridra's defenses like Scarface, and attack them to pressure Ridra to go on the defensive. It was because of this that Ridra was able to absolutely mercilessly drill into the shaman, as with every 3 exchanges he was managed to land one blow, eating away at the shaman's HP as it fell from a bright green to a dangerous orange color. The shaman could not understand how even after having one of the greatest combat bodies of this world, he was still being suppressed by a brat. But he could do nothing about it. Why am I being beaten back? I'm clearly much stronger than you, the shaman said, annoyed, as laid off the fighting part and summoned 10 orcs to help him retreat for a while. However, Ridra had tasted blood now, and had no intentions of letting the shaman go. Hence, he summoned his bone dragon and Durahal to fight against the summoned orcs, as he himself fought the shaman. Darkness Bind. Ridra tripped the running shaman with some vines, as he jumped over his body with the intention to pierce it on landing. Bam! Hitting some kind of barrier, Ridra bounced off without getting the opportunity to stab the shaman. No, 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 no. I just need more time to learn swordsmanship and use this body to its fullest potential. After a century I have a fresh body. I cannot fall here now, the shaman said, as he tried to open a portal and escape. However, Ridra just used the wooden necklace and created a wood-style prison around the shaman, blocking any and every possible routes of escape. Acid dispersion. The shaman used some sort of ugly yellow acid to melt the blocks of wood around him, as he faced Ridra with a cold glare. We have no enmity. I am not Scarface, and I did not attack your city. Let me go, and we will consider this matter settled, human, the shaman proposed. However, he knew Ridra was never gonna take such a deal. So in reality, he was only stalling for time, while he prepared to use Scarface as ultimate move once more. You know what I hate in this world the most? It's imposters like you. Ridra straight up rejected this idea, as he had far too much enmity with the shaman to let him walk. Clutching his sword, Ridra started to prepare for his move, that would end the shaman's life as well. In reality, Rudra had already seen through what the shaman was trying to do, and he already came up with a backup plan for it. The shaman was dumb to think that just because he took over Scarface's body and memories, that he could actually become a warrior that was half as good as Scarface, as a true warrior was not born. He was forged in a battlefield. His entire form, his eyes, and even his expressions all gave away his next move, and Rudra could smell it from a mile away what he wanted to do next. For Rudra, it was like facing a true elite academy student. As while the skills shown by the kid were not too shabby, he could technically read him like an open book. Very well. Don't say I did not warn you. Dragon Emperor. Meanwhile on the forums. Guys, Shikuni is a SUS player. In his very first breakout videos he was already using the Darkness Bind and the Darkness Blast moves. It was first assumed that it would be due to some artifact. However, his repoiter of forbidden moves has only increased since. Not only can he summon a bone dragon, he can also summon an undead legion. His class is supposed to be a knight. And the Pope somehow coronates him as a king, which means he absolutely cannot be connected with the dark faction. This only leaves one option. As the enemy he was fighting pointed out, Shikuni must be a follower of the Death God. Although I have no idea who or what the Death God is, I'm sure Shikuni gets all his powers from him. Find the Death God, and you can become the next Shikuni. Replies to this thread. Kamian, there is no Death God in Omega. There is only Lucifer, the god of the dark faction. Makes sense. You are a genius to figure this out. Thank you for the post. I will try to search about the legend of the Death God. Yes. We must find more about the legend of the Death God. Even my fighting skills are as good as Shikuni. If I just had the proper moveset and equipment, even I could be just like him. Well, here is my conspiracy theory. Shikuni might be a reincarnator. I mean, he's always at the right place at the right time. / important announcement. I'm in need for beta readers for a new upcoming project. It's for a special event concerning this book, and I need people who are both the fans of this book and avid readers otherwise to discuss about a very confidential and important matter. So if you think you are a good judge of books and content, please drop a comment down in the comments section below. Congratulations on hitting the GT target. We have officially crossed 2,400 GT. As for the bonus chapter, it will be uploaded today itself. / Chapter 633. There is only one. The shaman thought he had tricked Shikuni, as he saw the other standing 50 feet away from him, right in range for Scarface's ultimate move. The shaman knew it perfectly well that retreating without killing Shikuni was never an option. Should he attempt such a foolish endeavor, he would have two swords thrusted into the back of his armor. For him to successfully run away from this battlefield, Shikuni must die first. The best way to do this was with Scarface's ultimate move, as a second direct hit would definitely kill Shikuni for good, as the shaman refused to believe someone could withstand it twice. The only problem was that the move needed a lot of time to be prepared and took a heavy toll on mana and stamina. Hence trying to waste time in conversation. He prepared the move. In his mind the shaman felt like he was absolutely discreet with it, and that Rudra would never see it coming. Little did he know that he was trying to deceive the mastermind of deceit. In front of Shikuni, the shaman was a cute 2-year-old trying to hide the fact that he had eaten candy with chocolate marks smeared all over his face, as Shikuni could read his real motives as plain as day. When he was finally ready, with a gleeful expression plastered to his face, he finally unleashed Scarface's grandest move on Rudra once more. Dragon Emperor Destruction. A massive dragon coiled around the shaman's sword, and it was 1.5x bigger than the last time Scarface used it. Bam! The move was unleashed at breakneck speed, and the dragon traveled at blinding speeds towards Rudra. Bam! Break! Boom! Boom! It appeared as if the dragon had swallowed Rudra whole, and the attack had connected spot on. The dragon even went on to destroy half of Purple Haze City, as this time, the attack destroyed a total of 4 districts, and caused the start of a massive fire outbreak. Although the death of Shikuni was not confirmed even this time around, the shaman knew that he had done it. Nobody could escape such a move. It was even more powerful than Scarface's version, as the stats of the two of them combined were way more powerful than Scarface's alone. Ha 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 ha. In the end you fall anyway, the shaman said, as he breathed raggedly. Although he was not incapacitated like Scarface after using the move, he felt exhaustion and muscle soreness all over his body too. Men! Huff huff! Charge! Scarface gave the command, as he slowly started to back away. He had gotten the perfect body, and he had gotten rid of a potential servant of Hades. The rest of this war was none of his concern. His services for the merchants ended at this very moment. Meanwhile on the forums, that's it. This time he's dead for sure. Whoa. I thought after the last attack, Scarface was done for. But he had another one left inside him. He is too powerful. I wonder if Scarface could have soloed this war. I mean, his one strike kind of destroys 10% of the city. Too powerful. Shikuni met too powerful of an opponent. This was inevitable. Guys, don't count Shikuni out yet. He came back from this once. Oh please. You think even after all this Shikuni may still be alive? You are naive. It's over. He's dead for sure. RIP. All of you. Who count Shikuni out and jump to conclusions. Mark my words. He will rise, and he will fight Scarface again and again and again. Till he wins. This is not an anime, my friend. Such things only happen in fiction. Shikuni is dead. Oh yeah. Dare to put your hair on the line? I'll do it if you do. Deal. Deal. Back on the battlefield. Looking towards the sky. The shaman felt like he had defied God of Death once more. For centuries, he had preyed on the body of young men, and possessed them to live for a few more decades until doing it again. Evading the clutches of Hades time and time again. Over time his profession made him required to manipulate the laws of death. However, without the blessing of Hades, he was always nothing more than a second-rate manipulator, who could not actually control death. Feeling like he one-upped Hades, he looked towards the heavens and said, I killed your servant, you bastard Hades. And soon I will come for you too. I will become the master of... Splat. It was at this moment that Scarface's head rolled over the floor, with eyes so wide that they might just pop out of his sockets. The shaman and Scarface died together, as Rudra decapitated Scarface's ugly head from his body. Blood trickled all over the battlefield as Rudra BT over and took the decapitated head in his arms, and told the shaman his last words, before he lost consciousness forever. In a tone so cold and domineering, it would have sent chills down the shaman's spine if he had won. Rudra said, The God of Death, King Hades, sends his regards. / special shout out to Cervantes 91 and Savanthi for the 2 magic castles that these guys gifted the book. I'm extremely grateful for the patronage, and as with every super gift, there will be a bonus chapter for it today itself. This one is a bonus chapter for hitting the GT target. Good job everyone. Special note, guys, regarding the beta readers program. Please understand that there will be major spoilers in it. So only enroll if you guys can handle spoilers for this book. We start day after today, so please join the server by then. Me and my moderator will help you guys if you get stuck. So please drop a comment in the comments section below if you face any problems. For now, I only plan on taking in 15 beta readers, so slots are limited. We have not hit 15 yet, but I won't accept entries after 15, grimacing face. So sorry in advance for those who are left out. Join the Discord server ASAP too. / Chapter 634 Cold. A few moments ago, Rudra was perfectly prepared for the incoming Dragon Emperor destruction attack. The only reason why he could no evade at the previous time was because of the stupid Cerberus dog and the fact that his blink was on cooldown. However, this time he had blink available. Lying in wait, Rudra silently activated Cloud Feet as the first break of dawn signaled the start of a new day as the horizon started to brighter little by little. The key here was to wait till the last possible second before evading, to make it look like he was actually hit. The entire act needed to be extremely convincing for people to buy it, and luckily Rudra had the perfect move for it. Right as the shaman used the Dragon Emperor destruction, Rudra let the dragon approach him, before using unparalleled gaming skills and peak level prediction and control to use the move, Circumvent, unilaterally retreating alongside the direction of the attack. Rudra made it seem like the dragon's head was the one that was pushing him back as he leaned back, and his feet produced absolutely no friction. For the common player, who could barely make a blurry image, it seemed like Shikuni had been engulfed in a direct hit. However, right before the attack could actually land, Rudra used Blink and teleported quietly to a few meters away on the battlefield, with the entire world's attention being on the dragon attack and its raw power as it tore through the city wall and buildings. Nobody paid attention to Rudra, who had silently laid down on the battlefield, blending as one of the dead. This was an incredibly difficult move to pull off, and it needed absolute confidence and precise control in one's skills, as Rudra literally danced with death as he tried to fake getting hit by the move. Not only was the dragon traveling incredibly fast, had he only been a few centimeters slower, he would have been engulfed inside the dragon with no room for retreat. Considering the power of the beast, this time it would have been death for sure. But now that he wasn't deer, it was time for a sneak attack. Rudra watched without moving an inch as the elite soldiers despaired his death, and the merchants rejoiced. The shaman also laughed his heart out as he gave the order to the merchant troops to push as if he was Scarface, before sneakily retreating himself. In his moment of pride and ignorance, the shaman had his guard down as he did not expect Shikuni to attack out of nowhere once more. Hence, with his back exposed to Shikuni lying on the ground, the shaman walked slowly as he savored the taste of victory. He even had the gall to call Hades a bastard as he looked towards the sky and cursed him. However, it was this one short moment that was enough to cost him his life. Grim Reaper in his right hand, Rudra charged in a lightning-quick fashion as he used the move, Death Slash, of the sword Grim Reaper, to triple the critical damage of the next strike. With the shaman's HP still being in a dangerous orange region, the attack was enough to kill him, as his head was slit clean off his throat, and both him and Scarface lost their lives. Poor Scarface was constantly screaming inside the shaman's head to let his body go, and that he would make him suffer once he regained control. However, the shaman paid him no heed, as he knew that over time Scarface would grow silent, just like the others. However, with that one next strike, the both of them lost their lives. Rudra even went as far as to pick up the severed head of the fallen body, as he reminded the shaman of his worst fear yet, as he sent his soul directly to the underworld. Although Rudra was not a barbarian who would usually carry around severed heads of his enemies, he knew that he needed to make a statement this time around. Hence, he picked up Scarface's head and walked through the battlefield as he showed the world who the winner of that fight eventually was. The severed head in one hand, and Grim Reaper in another. Shikuni walked coldly through the city of purple haze, as the Grim Reaper slid across the floor making sparks. Blood dripped from the severed head of Scarface, as Rudra walked slowly parading it around, as he struck fear in every single blood merchant who saw the scene. Unlike Rudra's fake death news, the severed head in Shikuni's hand told a completely different tale, as although no words were spoken, everyone understood with irrefutable evidence that Scarface, the general of the blood merchants, had fallen to Shikuni of the elites. Rudra himself was not in a great condition. His left hand holding the severed head barely moved, while his back pain was killing him after performing the Death Slash. His walk was slow, not because he wanted it to be slow, but because it was the only pace where he could walk at the moment. Blood dripped from his open wounds, and he looked as if he was bathed in blood. His own and the enemy's from top to bottom, as his walk, albeit slow, was extremely powerful and fear-inducing. Everyone parted to a side where Shikuni passed by. Elite or merchant, as Rudra's aura itself was enough for every enemy to piss in their pants, especially when he carried their strongest general's head in his arms. No words needed to be spoken by Rudra, as the blood merchants rallied the news around all sectors themselves, panic and fear in their voices. They rushed around and told their brethren about the severed head of their leader, as the headlines were that our leader Scarface has fallen in battle at the hands of Shikuni of the elites. // bonus chapter for the super gift by Savanthi. Please thank him in the comments for this one. We have one more bonus chapter to do today, and it will come right after this. // Chapter 635 come, if you dare? The forums. Where TF did he come from? Is this it? Shikuni won? Shikuni decapitated that sumbitch. Ha ha ha. I knew Shikuni wouldn't fall to a petty dragon. How is he still alive after that attack? Is this guy invincible? If in this world Shikuni is the second best player, then no one has the balls to call themselves Arichi best. #GOAT. Incredible. The Shikuni does it again. I never doubted him for even a minute. I knew Shikuni was always going to win. Shikuni I. #GOAT. 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 To the gentleman who claimed to shave his head if Shikuni defeated Scarface. Time to go bald. Shikuni. 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 Go elites go. This changes nothing in the bigger picture. Scarface was ultimately just one guy. So is Shikuni. Their impact on the grand scale is minimum. We are talking about a war with millions of individuals involved. Wake up to reality, losers. The elites are still not winning the shit. STFU. Bald bish. Yeah. The elites never lose a war. You and your analysis are dumb. Go die, bald bish. Stupid bald bish. Fat lazy bald bish. Can't get it up, bald bish. A very jealous bald bish. Add insults here. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Rudra walked with Scarface as head in his left arm, as although he did not lift a finger himself, every single blood merchant soldier gave way to him wherever he passed from. Not a single one of the ordinary soldiers wanted to have a piece of the madman who could defeat and decapitate their leader. The same leader who destroyed a third of the city with his 2 attacks. On his slow march, he was reunited with Furball, who had apparently torched thousands of merchant troops by this point, as she happily hopped onto his shoulder, as she menacingly glared at anyone who eyed her master. Screech. The bone dragon flew over the streets, as it waited for Rudra at a crossroad. As the crossroad was the only place where its large body would fit without destroying the town infrastructure. Bowing its head down, it waited for Rudra to reach there and mount her. "We must kill Shikuni. He killed our leader," a blood merchant soldier said, as he inspired a few cowering soldiers to lead a fuel charge to block Shikuni's path. However, Rudra just snapped his fingers, and thousands of undead rose from the ground, as the fight was over before the merchant soldiers could even raise their swords in defiance. Just for the kicks of it, Furball burnt the fallen soldiers' bodies to ashes as Rudra did not even bat an eye at the massive fireball-throwing machine sitting on his shoulders, with thousands of undead standing guard for him as he slowly walked down the street towards his mount. Rudra was the epitome of a boss player if there was any in Omega. His expression cold, his deeds legendary, just his walk alone could strike fear into the hearts of the enemy. When he finally mounted the bone dragon, Rudra commanded it to fly all over the city, as he wanted every soldier at every battlefront to look at him with the head of Scarface. As it was important to strike fear into the hearts of the enemy troops, Rudra ordered the bone dragon to fly as low as possible, and as slow as it could, as Rudra wanted everyone to get a clear glimpse of him riding the bone dragon with Scarface's head in his arms. The elite soldiers audibly cheered for Shikuni, as it was a festival for the elite soldiers wherever the bone dragon would pass over their heads. However, the merchants felt their morale plummet as from promised the highs of Shikuni being dead. The reality of their general being the one dead slapped them hard. The merchants felt like the whole war was a big lie, and if their invincible leader could not win this fight, how could they? The Tier 4 generals of the Blood Merchant Army felt their blood boiling at the parading Shikuni. However, they knew better than anyone about the reality of Scarface's true strength, and they knew that anyone who could defeat Scarface was definitely not normal. When Rudra passed over Karna's side of the battlefield, he noticed how the battle lines were the furthest out there, and the casualties were the minimum. Karna was doing an absolutely banger of a job in the place. However, currently, he was surrounded by a lot of enemy soldiers. Although with his 3-sword style and an HP bar of over 80%, Karna was in no real trouble. Rudra still chose to lend a hand, as he extended his right arm for Furball to inch forward. As one massive flamethrower later, all of his enemies were burnt to a crisp, as he himself took a nice 6% damage, because of being caught in the attack. As Rudra flew over him, only a shout of, "URF asterisk 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 dead when I meet you," as asterisk 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 key could be heard as Rudra smiled at the response. It was the first time that Rudra was surveying the overall battle situation, and seeing the southern battlefield his heart was at ease. If nothing else, at least Karna could always be relied upon to get the job done. The worst situation was in the eastern battlefield, as while Mediv was giving Neatwit constant support, the overall situation did not look good. The damage caused by Scarface's attacks cleared up a path, except the already paved streets, that opened 2 new lanes of attacks for the merchant soldiers. 2 lanes that had no archballistae or blockades to stop their rampant march. Hence, it was a bloodbath on the elite's side trying to stop the rampant advance of the enemies. Although Neatwit himself was in one such lanes, he was forced on the retreat by 2 Tier 4 generals who lead the charge, as it was only because Mediv providing back-end support that the advance was as slow as it was. Understanding that the East needed his presence the most, Rudra rejoined the battle on the eastern battlefront. // bonus chapter for the super gift by Cervantes 91. Please thank him in the comments for this one. Special shout out to Omar Alsheikh for the 5,000 coins Magic Castle. I'm beyond grateful for the consistent support you show my content. Thank you, my friend. As with every super gift, a bonus will follow soon. Enjoy. Smiling face with smiling eyes // Chapter 636 The Power of One Man. Rudra arrived at the eastern battlefield and started to casually mount his offense without straining his body. He picked up a random blood-stained spear from the ground and buried it firmly in the ground before mounting Scarface's dead head on it, as he kept it on display for the blood merchants to see and cower in fear. Rudra was very casual in his fighting, as he let his bone dragon and Furball do most of the damage, as he himself would only rarely throw out 1 or 2 sword slashes using the Grim Reaper. While his physical presence did not change the tide of the war at all, his psychological presence changed the entire game. The elite soldiers felt their morale soaring as they saw their guild master coming to assist them, as they received a psychological energy boost to beat back the opponents. In wars, morale was a mysterious thing, and a group with a high morale often overcame even the most difficult adversities. Rudra had chosen to enter the battlefield from the second lane where Neatwit was not physically present, as that lane was the most poorly defended area of the entire city. There were only 2 blocks left until the enemy reached the gates of the inner city from that location, while the inner city was heavily fortified. In terms of area to cover, it was only as large as one sector, And if the walls of the inner city were breached, then even Rudra had little confidence from stopping the merchant army from storming the gates. On an average, for every 3 elite that fell, about 7 merchants died as well, and the balance of war was starting to ever so slightly tip in the direction of the elites. Having created a sophisticated system of reinforcements and first aid centers, Rudra had converted the city into the ultimate battleground, as every other roof had some sort of defensive structure mounted on it, and every street had blockades and traps set up. For every time the elites retreated, they would bring out the handheld pulse cannons and shoot 10-20 shots, creating a space vacuum before calmly retreating without casualties, as they threatened the charging forces with the same sort of death should they get out of line. Technically, the elites only had so much ammunition for the handheld pulse cannons. Should they use it on one mass slaughter, they would be rendered defenseless in later stages of the war. Hence, guild management had tactically advised the members to use the weapons only for retreating or reducing enemy numbers when things became out of control. Rudra's presence was both a deterrent and a bait, as while the common soldiers did not dare fight Rudra head-on, his lousy way of fighting definitely made breaking news, as the Tier 4 generals in the Eastern Front received information that Shikuni was injured. The war was reaching a critical stage, and the Blood Merchant generals knew that with Scarface dead, someone needed to take command of the forces. Currently, the best bet that the merchants had was to exploit the 2 lanes created by Scarface's attacks, and swiftly take down the walls of Inner City and storm the palace. Although it was easier said than done, with an injured Shikuni and 5 Tier 4 generals present within the eastern battlefield, it was very much possible. 2 of the most senior generals talked amongst themselves and decided that only one of them would continue fighting Niwit in Lane 1, while the other one would go on and free the other Tier 4 generals, who were fighting against Tier 4 paladins of the church in the eastern battlefield. Before the 4 of them rallying a legion of troops against Shikuni in Lane 1. The plan was simple. 1. Outnumber Shikuni and kill him while he is injured, and restore troop morale. 2. Use best moves to punch a hole in the inner city wall. 3. Storm the inner city using the might of the Eastern Legion, and rally troops from other battlefronts to abandon their attack lines and focus on the one opening that had been created. 4. Win the war by storming the palace and retrieving the kingdom token. Enacting this plan, one of the 2 Tier 4 generals fighting Niwit in Lane 2 retreated, and went off to support the others in getting rid of the paladins from the church first. Albeit a risky plan, the merchants bet it all in busting through Lane 1, where they had the least ground to cover. After 30 minutes of fighting and forcing the Tier 4 paladins from church to run for their lives, for Tier 4 Blood Merchant generals banded together, as they rallied their troops towards Lane 1, coming out of the biggest fight of his life. Shikuni was headed into another one, however, with his physical state restricting his combat potential to 30% of his peak prowess. Could he hold the fort down once more for the elites? Or would this be the moment where he finally fell and his invincible legend ended? Meanwhile, Dronacharya was in a prison cell, being held captive in the Blood Merchant camp, as his cell was fitted with anti-teleportation properties. Restrained with hard steel cuffs meant to hold Tier 4 prisoners and awaiting his judgment as a war criminal. All he could do while sitting in this cell was scroll the forums and see bits of the war videos being posted. His eyes popped out of his sockets when he saw Rudra decapitating Scarface, as while others may not know the true extent of that man's powers, Dronacharya knew it perfectly well, wondering where and how he went wrong. The only thing he prayed for now was the demise of the elites. // bonus chapter for the super gift by Omar Alsheikh. Please thank him in the comments for this one. Note, for the beta readers yet to join, this is your last chance. I have posted a link to the Discord in every comment of everyone who wanted to be a beta reader. I'm going to start the project from tomorrow, and if you guys have not joined it by then I guess you won't be able to participate. Adding the link here once more, and one more in the comments. This is the last chance to join y'all. The program is everything, guys. Trust me when I say you can't miss it. https://discord.gg/kjtrdwcw94. Join through above link // Chapter 637. Nobody can stop him. Rudra laughed when he saw the 4 Tier 4 generals approach the lane that he was holding down in the eastern battlefield, as he well understood their motives. The lane he was holding was the highway ticket to reaching the walls of the inner city, and the best shot that the merchants had at winning this war. On top of that, killing Rudra would also restore morale within the army, and while the 4 of them could not take Rudra on at his full strength, the 4 of them believed that in his significantly injured state, they could gang up and kill him. Internally, Rudra had long expected such a situation to arise. However, it was something he wished to happen, and not something that he wanted to avoid. For him, the only tangible way to end this war was to completely defeat 2 fronts of the attack before redirecting the forces from these fronts to the others, to rout the enemy forces completely. The northern side, where Scarface was leading the charge, was mission accomplished, as in the vacuum of a leadership figure the army fell into disarray there. Now if he could just accomplish the same on the eastern front, he could finally change the tide of the war completely, and end this useless slaughter for once and for all. For this purpose, it was ideal that the enemy came at him with all that they had, as once he dealt with this wave of attack it would be over. It was not the best plans made by Rebirth, however. He was mentally and physically exhausted after fighting and managing the situation day in and day out. This was going to be the last push. Pointing Grim Reaper towards the approaching generals, Rebirth said with a cold smile, "Come." Meanwhile, Cuber Corporation. "Shikuni defeated Scarface?" A Cuber official asked, shocked at the presented report. "But Scarface is an A-ranked mercenary in planet number 6674. His combat skills are legendary. How did he fall in battle to one of our own?" The Cuber officials were absolutely baffled. "Nothing about Shikuni makes sense. Gaia notices no foul play involved and his battle skills are the real deal. Maybe with him around Earth stands a chance," a third official said with a wishful voice. "No. One guy cannot support the weight of the entire race. It's not possible. We need at least 1,000 more players like him before we can even hope to enter the galactic stage. But the players are breaking through very quickly, but none of them are really maturing. As of this moment, there are over 180, 240 cultivators, but only 36 of them have reached tier 4-inch. Everyone in the room became silent hearing this news. Nothing was going as planned for the Cuber Corp, and while a lot of players were showing promise, not many were mature enough yet to take on the responsibility that was to come ahead. Humanity was heading towards a very precarious situation as they were approaching a threat that they did not even know existed. The world was on a clock, and the game Omega was not as simple as it seemed. Back at the battlefield, the current situation was such that Rebirth had about 300,000 soldiers at his back along with Furball and the Bone Dragon, while the enemy had about 850,000 soldiers and 4 tier 4 generals marching towards him. Furball instantly used the move, Fire Wave, when she saw the approaching reinforcements, as the 4 tier 4 generals had to repel the move using their weapons by cutting through the tidal wave of fire to prevent major casualties on their camp, as Rebirth provocated them to attack. The generals looked at the decapitated head of Scarface mounted on a pike and felt disgust build up in their stomachs. One of the 4 said, "You barbarian! How dare you put our leader's head on a pike? We will have you butchered." Rebirth snorted hearing this, as he said, "Okay, big mouth. Try." The elite soldiers cheered at this, as chants of Shikuni started to well up once more at the battlefield. The 4 generals felt like they were losing face, hence they rudely cut in and said, "Such arrogance from an injured man. You can't even move your left arm anymore. Can't use your dual sword style. In such a state, where do you get the confidence of beating us 4 at once?" The elite army felt their spirits dampen when they heard such facts. When one looked at Shikuni, they could clearly see the bleeding and broken left arm that was as limp as a block of wood, as it was a fact that Rebirth had lost 90% mobility in that arm. Even so, Rebirth had no signs of fear on his face as he bared his teeth to his enemy and said, "If I'm so easy to beat, why don't you guys try me? Or do you all need to ask your dead leader permission first?" Rebirth's confidence deterred the 4 as they felt like something was amiss. Nobody could be so confident at the face of their doom. However, with having no better options, the 4 of them nodded to each other and started the assault. 2 of them charged straight towards Rebirth while 2 flanked him, as the 4 of them unleashed long-range moves towards him from 3 different directions. Rebirth's Bone Dragon blocked one attack for him, while Rebirth calmly sidestepped the other before blocking the frontal attacks with Grim Reaper. At this moment, however, the 4 of them had closed in enough to engage in short-distance combat as they attacked Rebirth with their weapons all at once. One of the 4 generals used the spear, and his reach was the longest. 2 of them used a sword, while one of them used a scythe. The first one to reach Rebirth was the spear user, as he thrusted his spear aiming for his heart, which Rebirth had to sidestep to avoid. However, this was exactly what the generals were hoping for, as in the direction that he sidestepped, 2 swords were incoming towards his neck at extremely fast speeds, and Rebirth barely ducked in time to avoid them, as the swish took a few strands of his hair from his head. Finally, as he was balled on the ground, the scythe user used an overhead slash aimed at his skull. However, using the Grim Reaper, Rebirth managed to block it, although he was knocked down on his butt. It was at this moment that he would have been completely foo had he not had the Bone Dragon protecting him, as down on his, but he no longer had a way move fast enough to evade the second round of attacks. However, thankfully the Bone Dragon tail swiped all 4 of the generals at once as they were sent flying back towards their soldier mass. The flying generals each knocked over a dozen troops before regaining stability. as they saw Rudra calmly on his feet, and leaning on his sword once more, as he awaited their return. To make matters even worse, he was even yawning, as if the fight bored him to death. The disrespect was real, and the generals could not stand it. However, just as they tried to charge at him once more, 3 blocks of wood shot out from the ground towards the spear user as Rudra used wood manipulation to keep one of the 3 busy. Although scythe and spear were both of a long range, Rudra needed to keep the spear user at bay more in his current condition, as his mobility was not enough to deal with long-range attacks at the moment. His back was aching as hell, and although he was not showing the pain on his face, dodging and turning was excruciating to perform. For Rudra, life would be much more simpler if he only had to deal with the sword users, as his proficiency in swords was high enough to be more than a match for the generals in hand-to-hand combat. Attempting to conceal him in a wood prison, Rudra focused on him completely, as he let the other 3 close in the distance in him once more. However, with Furball standing guard, she created a firewall to provide Rudra with the necessary time to prepare for the incoming enemies, as the flames stopped the momentum of the attackers. To the world watching, this style of supported fighting appeared extremely weak and cowardly for a player like Shikuni. However, little did they know that it was all a part of his master plan. The tiger was maimed. He was weak and injured. However, an injured beast was the most ferocious. Shikuni being injured did not mean that his danger level had dropped. It only meant that he needed to pick his spots to attack more wisely, as he was only but biding his time, waiting for that opportunity to strike. Chapter 638, God Level. Shikuni, this is where you fall, the blood merchant general said, as he looked at his colleagues, and nodded in agreement about executing their hidden card. Shikuni had been evading the others, like a cat for over 7 minutes now, and the merchants felt frustrated at this cowardly behavior displayed by Shikuni. The 4 of them were yet to be even grazed by his sword, and it looked as if he had a hard time defending even his own self, as he had to rely on his pets to keep him alive. The Bone Dragon and Furball, on the other hand, had received bits of damage, as their HP became a yellowish-green color instead of the lush green that it once was. If this went on for much longer, Rudra would be forced to recall them both, as he could not allow them to die. The merchants had realized that Rudra's combat potential was peak tier 3 at most, and he was nothing to write home about, as against their big moves, he would be powerless and weak. Little did they know that this was exactly the bait that Rudra was setting, as when the 4 of them created separation to launch their big moves, it was at that moment that Rudra knew he had them biting the bait. This was the hook. The scythe user buried his scythe in the ground, as he channeled his mana to use the move Shadow Trap, as Rudra's legs suddenly sunk into the ground below, and he was seemingly immobilized. Now! The scythe user screamed as right on his cue. The spear user held up his weapon javelin style, and aimed it at the bone dragon's skull. Javelin repel. Boom! The spear created a sonic boom as it broke past the sound barrier, and collided with the bone dragon's skull, as it received critical damage, and was repelled back about 50 meters. Right alongside the javelin repel, one of the 2 sword generals attacked Furball as he used Water Slash to land a terrifying water attack that neutralized Furball's defenses, and threatened to hit it clean. The moment Furball's fire defenses crumpled, Rudra instantly recalled her to protect her from the attack's damage. However, he himself was in risk of being hit by the 4th general's attack, as the final sword user used the move One Sword Slash, as he unidirectionally sword slashed towards Rudra, threatening to pierce his body into half. Rudra had to bend his right arm to a 90 degrees angle to block the move. However, while he was successful in blocking the attack, it also meant that he was now tier up in defending, while being completely immobile to all incoming attacks. Now! Do it! Kill Shikuni. The sword user that was keeping Rudra busy surveyed the situation, as the bone dragon was still far away, while Furball was no longer in the picture, and with Rudra being stuck inside the shadow trap. This was the perfect chance to end his life. The scythe user unleashed his ultimate move at this moment, as he used the same move as Rudra did to decapitate Scarface, as he used Death Slash, while the javelin user, who no longer had his weapon, looked towards the heavens and summoned 100,000 javelins made of pure mana, as he pointed them all towards Shikuni, and let all hell break loose, as they showered towards his body from all directions. The last sword user also used his peak move, as he pointed the sword towards the sky, and a terrifying bolt of lightning struck it, with that sparkling sword full of thunder. He then used the move Thunder Slash, as Rudra now faced 3 tier 4 moves at the same time, while having 0 mobility or space to maneuver, with his only good hand stuck in holding off the opponent. It was a well thought out strategy by the merchants, and it was an efficient use of their numbers advantage. In their hearts, the merchants thought at this moment that it was over, that Shikuni could never evade or counter this, and that his doom was only moments away now. Even if Shikuni did miraculously survive, his condition will only deteriorate further, and sooner or later, they would be able to suppress him. However, the merchants forgot about one key part in their planning. They forgot the part where Shikuni was the greatest mastermind and strategist in the history of mankind, and how he could not be outsmarted by a bunch of meat-headed generals such as themselves. Already planning 2 steps in front of the opposition, Shikuni was on top of his game, as he had a big smile plastered to his face. Time to end this, he thought as he prepared to show the world a glimpse of his true strength one last time. Meanwhile on the forums. Oh my god, what has happened to Shikuni? Why is he fighting like a 4-year-old girl? I don't even know what to expect anymore. I think the trick to beat Shikuni is to let him beat you first. Because whenever the cards are stacked against him, he seems to overcome. It's better to let him stack the cards against you first. He's facing 4 generals this time though. It's a very tough situation. I don't think he can make it. I know I've been wrong about Shikuni many times, so I won't claim to be sure. But I feel 70% sure that he will die. Shikuni is God. Shikuni is GOAT. If you don't think so, you're a piece of turd. I wonder how he gets out of this one. Guys, forget about the war. Have you heard about the upcoming system announcement? There are rumors floating that we will have another system update soon. We are having a new system update? Since when? There is no official word from the Cuber Corp guys. Don't believe such false rumors. The Cuber Corp. There was a complex atmosphere inside the Cuber headquarters, as the Cuber Corps worst fears were about to be realized. I have been contacted by the Universal HQ. We must move to Phase 3 now. The day for the integration has been decided. We have been given 2 years and 7 months time to get our species ready. Gaia said expressionlessly. What? But we at least need 5 more years. 2.5 is too less. The leader of the Cuber Corp slammed his fists on the table in frustration. Although the world believed Omega to be a game developed by the mysterious Cuber Corporation, it was not actually the case. There was a reason behind the Cuber Corporation being untouchable and being able to create technology far beyond the means of the human species. And unlike what humans thought to believe, humanity was not actually the only race in the universe. There were a lot of secrets and a lot of mysteries in the universe, and now the humans were under the radar. The day of integration was moving closer, and the date has been set. Humanity needed to grow strong and fast. The universe was an unforgiving and cold place, and it was a dog-eat-dog world. The game was much more than just a second world, and a way to make money and earn fame. The VR Olympics. The in-game main storyline, and the characters and races inside them. Everything was there for a purpose, and the time to reveal them was inching closer every second. The leader of the Cuber Corp looked at the screen in his hand. Inside it were the faces of the most prominent players of Dark and Light faction from each continent. The list was a comprehensive analysis done by Gaia, and a total of 48,000 parameters were scored out of 10 to select the best performing players of the billions of humans across the world. Since each continent was isolated from each other, with its own kingdoms and its own main storyline, there were a lot of disparities, and judging everyone by the same standard was not possible. However, one name stood at the very top of the list by a huge margin at that, with an unbelievable average score of 9.7 out of 10, and that player was Shikuni of the elites. The special note that Gaia made at the end noted this about Shikuni. There is no better player in the world in developing his guild as well as Shikuni. The ideal leader, and a man who can carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. Prime candidate to be made the first pillar of humanity. Reading the list, the leader of Cuber Corp sighed as he said, Gaia, if the list remains unchanged even after 6 months, start grooming them to become the pillars of humanity. In a mechanical voice, Gaia responded. Noted. Corporal. // guys, we need to push the pedal on GT and PS. Why are we not reaching the targets in even 2-3 days? For ending in top 10 GT rankings, I dropped privilege prices by 800 coins. Help me end up there once more, and I will drop it by a significant margin still. Let's get it, guys. Commune. // Chapter 639, Ending the War, Shikuni style. Rudra was pinned badly by the merchants. It seemed like this time around, he was done for. Not only was he in a weakened state, but his only working limbs were all tied up at the moment, as he was a sitting duck for the 3 Tier 4 attacks that were headed his way. As the world watched with bated breaths, Rudra thought to himself, time to end this. As he prepared to display a glimpse of his true strength to the world. There was a reason he was lying docile for the fight in the last few minutes, and fighting in a way that he could barely defend himself without taking much damage. While it was true that he was doing it to bait the enemies, it was not actually the whole picture. Yes, he was injured, and yes, he was trying his best just to not get chopped by the 4 blood merchant generals. But his main purpose was to await the cooldown of the strongest move in his arsenal. The moment the cooldown on Death Knight's focus ended, Rudra immediately activated that move as the flow of time suddenly dilated around him. Initially, the only ability that he felt was downgraded after him evolving to the Death Knight class was the Knight's Suppression, as Death Knight's focus did not seem to be an equally impressive move on paper. However, from the moment Rudra had used it once in trying to escape from Scarface's ultimate move, he realized the true power of that move and how broken its ability actually was. While using the Knight's Suppression, he could only suppress one opponent at most, and only after managing to land multiple consecutive strikes. It was not the same for Death Knight's focus. As the flow of time slowed around him, Rudra realized that he could easily evade the enemy attacks and land and counter-attack, all in the blink of an eye without the opponent even realizing what had happened. The speed of fights at Tier 4 and above was already greatly exaggerated. But if somehow in such high-speed fights where every participant had the ability to decapitate the other with one move, a broken move like time dilation existed, it was the ultimate advantage. He had learnt in physics textbooks in schools that 4 equals mass asterisk acceleration. However, in a time dilation where his own acceleration was significantly higher than his surroundings, Rudra's force of attack was technically 4 times of his actual strength. It was only when he practically understood this particular phenomenon did he realize the true worth of the move he had in his arsenal, perfect for exactly these kinds of fights where one was facing multiple high-level opponents. Rudra was now planning to use the move to its fullest potential, breaking his legs free out of the shadow trap first. Rudra produced a power that was way beyond the realms of what a Tier 4 player could produce, as his force created a massive hole in the earth itself. As the entire block of land detached from its surroundings first, and Rudra's legs snapped out of the bind later, Rudra could see the absolute horror in the eyes of the general, who was keeping him at bay, as Rudra could perfectly the tensing of his muscles and the direction of his vision, as he could read his opponent's thoughts and movements like an open book. Smiling cruelly at him, Rudra increased the pressure on his sword, as his sudden burst of strength made his enemy's knees buckle all of a sudden, as with a loud crack, his right knee was planted into the ground. In the split second that his eyes wandered to look at the status of the 3 attacks supposed to land on Rudra any second now, the general lost sight of Rudra. Unfortunately for him, though, it was the last time that he would ever see the man, as he felt a sharp kick at his back as he was sent flying towards where Rudra was initially standing. What happened next shocked the entire world, as 100,000 javelin started to pierce the body of the Blood Merchant General mid-air first, as the Death Slash and Thunder Slash hit him half a second later. Defenseless against the move, with his back exposed, the general died a horrifying death as his neck and waist were sliced clean by the moves of his own teammates, while his body overall was full of holes. The 3 generals left shouted at once, "No!" But it was too late, as their colleague had already been dispatched to the afterlife. But before they could even express their rage and dissatisfaction at Shikuni over this unfortunate result, they felt chills run down their spines, as they felt the incredible power of a Tier 5 attack in preparation. Covered in a whirlpool of mana and bright light, Shikuni was lifted into the air, as he had his palms open and facing towards the sky. A spear made of light soon manifested itself above his arm, as Shikuni looked like an absolute incarnate of Archangel Michael at this moment, as with his crown and his regal aura, he made even the strongest merchant soldiers lose their grips over their swords. The power that Shikuni emanated at this moment was unreal. And the moment when he finally opened his eyes, that were filled with white light, everyone looking at the scene under Tier 3 went on their knees because of the pressure he created. Elite and merchant alike. Hundreds of thousands were on their knees as they gaped in shock and horror at the man who was floating in the air above, covered in a divine aura. The 3 alive merchant generals felt their necks were in extreme danger, and hence they started to scramble and run. However, Rudra was patient with his shot. Holy Lance. When Rudra finally picked his trajectory, he shot out the move with his full power. And under the effect of Knight's focus, the moment the lance left his hands, it suddenly sped up exponentially, piercing 2 Tier 4 generals who were scrambling for their lives. Rudra had chosen his trajectory beautifully, as although the 2 merchant generals were 20 meters apart, he still managed to throw it at an inclination that pierced both of their hearts before passing through a legion of merchant soldiers clean. Only when the bodies started to hit the floor did the true devastation of the move that Rudra unleashed was realized. In a straight line, over 20,000 soldiers had fallen dead, as Rudra's move left a single open line of dead bodies within hundreds of thousands of the merchants' legions. As the remaining soldiers, who saw their brethren die in a fraction of a breath's time, were now not breathing at all, as they looked at the terrifying leader of the opposition. 3 Tier 4 generals dead in under 5 minutes. Shikuni was on a killing spree, and the merchants were finally made aware of the true battle strength of Shikuni. While some trembled, Some pissed themselves, while some were left gawking. Everyone on the merchant camp had the exact same idea at this moment, which was the one-word flee. Meanwhile on the forums, "He did it again! What even was that move? I'm losing my mind, guys. One moment, he is the emissary of death riding bone dragons, while at the other he's an angel using divine power. What even are you, Shikuni? This is it, guys! This is the day I officially give up on ever becoming the best player in the world. With Shikuni out there, can we even have such dreams? With Shikuni in the elite camp, I don't think they will ever lose a war. Ha! I told you guys since the start. He's invincible. Invincible. I have been observing Shikuni since he bursted onto the scene all those years ago, and I have seen him accomplish the impossible time and time again. I am not a man who says big words lightly, but I feel like you do it once. It's fluke. You do it twice. It's epic. You do it thrice. It's excellent fortune. You do it 4 times. It's talent. You do it 5 times. It's a habit. But when you manage to create miracles against all odds and defy your fate every single time, you're the GOAT. In GOAT Shikuni we believe. Amen. 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 Back at the battlefield, the moment the divine strength left his body, he immediately started to feel the backlash as his already weak and broken body finally started to give in to Mother Nature. Still under the effect of Knight's focus, Rudra could feel every single cell of his body hurt, and it was excruciating. His brain was screaming at him to stop the pain and just kill himself. However, as he looked into the eyes of the enemy, he saw the desired fear that he wanted to stir inside them, and he knew at that very moment that he needed to hang on just a little more. Just a little more, damn it. Don't crumple. The Rudra of his past life screamed at him, as he reminded his current self that coming so far, he could not fall here. Hence, even though every bone and muscle in his body refused to move a single inch, Rudra forced his legs to stand up one more time, as his muscles started to violently vibrate due to overexertion. Looking at the last blood merchant general, who was terrified beyond belief, Rudra smiled like a maniac as he said, "Come." Chapter 640 Conclusion. Only Rudra himself knew how much pain he was undergoing at the moment. To say that it was mind-numbing would be an understatement, as it was simply not possible for his body to even muster the strength to support his body weight anymore. Even then, through trembling legs, Rudra did stand up once more. And while he was bleeding from his forehead, bleeding from his mouth, bleeding from his arms, and even from his ears, he still managed to look like an absolute demon as he stared down the last tier 4 general standing. The opponent was too terrified to even move as he looked at Rudra in absolute horror. "Come!" Rudra said as he smiled like a maniac, sending shivers down the spine of his opponent. When the general looked into the eyes of Rudra, he could see the image of the death god himself, as his psyche was too rattled to even think rationally after seeing the deaths of his 3 colleagues. It was at this moment that Rudra did the unthinkable, forcing his will beyond the limits of human pain tolerance. He forced his right hand to pop the dislocated left shoulder back into its socket as he stared into the eyes of the tier 4 general during the entire time that he did it. Pop! Rudra popped his broken left shoulder back into the socket, as his facial expression did not even change one bit as he did it, with the maniacal smile only widening rather than reducing. Rudra gripped Siege Breaker 2 as he crossed his 2 swords and took a fighting stance as he said once more, "Come!" Although both his hands and his entire body was trembling violently, Rudra's face revealed a different story, as it was as confident and calm as ever. "MO monster! Monster!" The general panicked as he ditched his scythe and started to run away from Rudra as he started to ditch the battlefield. "Maniac! Maniac! I cannot fight him if I wish to live. Retreat! Retreat! Fall back!" the general shouted as he ran away. The already shook blood merchant army following suit as they ditched their weapons and abandoned their lines. A loud cheer went up the elite's camp as the enemy retreated, as the elite morale reached the pinnacle. For everyone who was watching Shikuni at that moment, he was like the incarnation of God himself as he stood on the battlefield as an invincible hero. His head down, Rudra bit his lips hard as he used his helmet to cover his facial expressions. Pointing his sword towards the retreating army, he said in his most kingly voice possible, "Elites, chase them, be out of our city. Charge! Drive them all out. Victory is ours!" The energetic elites responded with full gusto, as the elite army charged towards the retreating merchant army and forced them out of the city. Rudra wobbled on his way to his bone dragon as he hurled his broken body over the critically injured creature and commanded him for the last time, "Land on the mage tower. Protect me then on." Although the poor creature had its head crushed completely by the spear throw, it still obeyed Rudra's commands as he landed over the mage tower and clawed itself at the very top. Rudra vomited a mouthful of blood on the bone dragon's body when it finally landed, as his body had lost the last vestige of strength it had, forcing him into a seated position. He monitored the ongoing battle from a high view. As he retired from active battle, he had performed to his absolute limits in this war, and now he was going to enjoy his very well-deserved rest after a long week's work. According to his estimations, the war on the Eastern Front should wrap up fast, and with that the elites would win 2 to 4 battlefronts, with it already being a sealed victory at North. Once the eastern side fell, the momentum of fights would shift completely as reinforcements from both these sides could then join the other battlefronts, and the elites could finally start pushing back. Although he was not fighting himself and forcing his droopy body to not slide and fall over the bone dragon's head, his presence itself was reassurance enough for the elites, as everyone throughout the city could see the tallest building in the city and the bone dragon on top, and know that the guild master was watching over them. It was also proof that Rudra was still alive and well, and that in itself was a morale booster for the elites. Drinking potions to ease his pain, Rudra slowly recovered some straws worth of strength as he saw the battle unfold under his eyes. Just as he expected, the eastern battlefield underneath was able to completely overwhelm the merchants, and within the next 2 hours the eastern front was a complete victory. Neatwit instantly rallied his troops to go south, as he proudly joined Karna's side in battle, and started to push the merchants back on the south end. The same happened on the northern front, as they joined Johnny's side in battle at the west. The reinforcements arriving was a joyous occasion for the soldiers fighting in the west, as their very presence meant that the battle on their side was over. When the end is visible in sight, a man feels the most motivated to push to the finish line, whereas moving forward with no goal in sight is difficult. It is because of this that the elites soon started to overwhelm their opponents, and the tide of the war completely shifted into the elites' favor. The balance of odds changed completely, as the online forums betting became 90-10 in elites' favor, as it seemed as if the elites were on the brink of a victory. The only reason why some people still backed the merchants was because it had been a very topsy-turvy war, with both sides pulling comebacks seemingly out of nowhere. However, they were wrong in backing the merchants, as there was no comeback this time, as 6 hours later the southern side had comprehensively routed the merchants out of the city, with 3/4 battlefronts lost. The merchants stood no chance at the western front, as the moment the bulk reinforcements arrived from the south and east, the western army faced the full might of the elite army. Slaughtered like cattle, the merchants were not even ousted from the city on the western front, as they were simply exterminated by the elites after Karna's forces blocked all exits. When the elites finally routed all the enemies from all 4 battlefronts, a system notification made the entire city erupt in cheers. System notification: the war between the group blood merchants and the defendants true elites for the throne of the true kingdom has been won by the true elites. The merchants have admitted defeat and are now blacklisted within the country, with a bounty on the head of each survivor. The entire elite army went mad with adrenaline rush at this announcement, as warriors roared and chests bumped each other, while some hugged and shed tears of joy. Karna, SMG, and Neatwood broke out in dancing, as the 3 giggled like a bunch of teenagers, not being able to believe that they managed to actually pull this shit off. The emotions every elite was feeling at the moment was surreal, as this was definitely the longest and hardest fought war that they had ever fought in their lives. And despite the overwhelming odds, the group still managed to overcome it together. When Rudra finally heard that the war was over, he let a smile escape his lips as he recalled the bone dragon and let himself fall from the top of the 60th floor mage tower towards the ground. He had pushed himself to the absolute limits in this war, but now that it was over, and he had no more job to do, he let the pain wash over him as he gave into his body's condition. Although he just wished to die peacefully, somehow the thud of landing at the floor never came, as he was caught in a levitation spell used by Mediv. He smiled at his colleague, but he had so much blood in his mouth that he could not even utter a single word without vomiting a mouthful first, not wanting to show such an embarrassing image of himself. Rudra said nothing, but Mediv understood the smile behind the silence. Wrapping Rudra's arm around his shoulder, he carried his entire body weight to the nearest medical center, as he let Chief Healer Naomi take over from there. Naomi looked at Rudra's pitiful state as a tear escaped her eye, but she was all smiles too for the victory of the group. Rudra tried to swallow his blood and say something to make her stop crying. However, Naomi placed a hand over his lips as she said, "No need to say anything. You can rest now, babe." Rudra said nothing as he finally closed his eyes and let Naomi work her magic over his broken body. The elites had won this war, and the headlines worldwide were, "One for all for one. Go elites go!" // special shout out to Cervantes 91 for the 5,000 coin super gift. Also, we have crossed the GT target. Good job everyone for hitting that. So tomorrow will be a 2 bonus chapter day, with one being for GT and one for the super gift. Hope you all enjoyed the war arc. This concludes the fighting part of it. // Chapter 641 Conclusion. This was one of the lengthiest and hardest fought wars by the elites of all time, and it was instrumental in forging a sense of unity within the guild. The guild had expanded a lot in recent times, and the newer members of the guild did not carry the same mentality of the older ones, and did not truly understand the reason why the guild had grown so much so fast. Rebirth had prioritized quality over quantity with the elites, and with the core members all living in the upside. The guild was as united and cohesive as a unit as one could be, and now the newer members were added to that list too. While for the past few months, it was only smooth sailing for the elites. This was a war where even the veteran members knew that the chances of defeat were greater than the chances of victory. And to power through such a war, and come out victorious, it truly forged character in a soldier. The newer members now finally understood the true depth of the guild's prowess, and how hard the upper echelons of the guild actually worked to make such impossible feats possible. Acquiring new technologies, leading battles from the front, covering the retreat of their legion, holding enemy generals at bay. The elite elders did all that and much more. Seeing the true strength of Tier 4 enemy generals in action, the elite members finally understood the true disparity between themselves and the elders, who could go head to head with these monsters, and especially between them and Guildmaster Shikuni, who actually beat these guys back. Everyone in the guild appreciated Shikuni from the bottom of their hearts in the guild. It was a respect that he had earned by navigating the guild out of troubled waters time and time again by leading from the front. It was close to worship, as for the elites their guildmaster could do no wrong. And they had faith that till Shikuni was standing, any war could be won. It was this devotion that made them sing the chants of their guildmaster even when the war was over. As except the chants of Go Elites Go. The other most popular victory chant was, "He can't be beat. He can't be beat. His name is Shikuni. He can't be beat." Rebirth himself was out of action following the war for a full 12 hours, as he recuperated in the medical bay where Naomi and a team of senior healers put his bones back together. The healers were shocked as to how Shikuni was even standing in such a state, as his spine, when he came to the medical bay, was broken from its joint at the hip bone. Although his HP bar was full, Shikuni was nothing more than a bag of meat, as his body had no mobility anymore. Only after the Tier 4 paladins from the church also joined his treatment was Rebirth finally patched up enough to start walking and use his left arm again. As even then, he was given a 60-day rehab program where he could not overexert himself. Bandaged from top to bottom, he finally made an appearance in the streets as he sent the order to gather the entire guild in the inner city. As Rebirth stood on the highest steps of the Church of Light, he patiently waited as thousands and thousands of elite warriors started to fill up the inner city, as an atmosphere of joy and celebration could be seen. Although the crowd densely packed the entire inner city, they unanimously parted and made a guard of honor when an elder made their way into the inner city. As claps and cheers surrounded all elders as they made their way to the church, Karna and Johnny walked confidently amongst all the cheers, while Neatwit and Fatty Kalash felt shy. SMG and Mediv avoided the crowd in the first place, as SMG made his way through the shadows, and Mediv used levitation. With all the boys assembling, the only one left was Amelia, as she received the biggest ovation of them all, as she made her way to the church's steps. Rebirth gave a smile to all his fellow elders as pride swelled within his chest to see them. He felt fortunate to have picked such reliable members as the pillars of his guild, as now they could even battle against a mega group like Blood Merchants and come out victorious. He looked at the crowd smiling, as the deafening chants of Shikuni, 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 entered his ears. Rebirth chuckled at those chants as he raised his hand to signal them to stop. And within 3 seconds the entire city was enveloped in pin-drop silence. It was the charisma that Rebirth exuded that made one instantly compliant. As with a single signal of his hand, millions complied. "We did it, yeah! We won!" he said, as the elites bursted into whistles and cheers, as Rebirth laughed his heart out as well. Raising his hand once more, he finally started his speech. "Yes! We did it! We did it together! We did it as a guild, and we showed the merchants who is the big dog around this neighborhood. It wasn't an easy war, lads. I know it. Sometimes there were moments where even I thought that F.I.N.G. hell. Is there an end to their numbers? We killed one merchant, and 100 were behind him to replace his position in the attack lines. And at one point, the war just became exhaustive. However, boys, this is what the merchants thought as well, and it is the reason that they fell. They thought their superior numbers would scare the elites. They thought that even if one of them died that they had 100 to replace them. However, they did not expect that a single elite would take all 100 and one of those bitches down. The elites roared in approval as they felt the energy in Rudra's speech. Rudra was usually always reserved with his words, and he rarely cursed. Hence, it was always serious when he did. This was not a war where we gained some monetary or territorial gains. No. It was an unavoidable conflict where even as the winners we lost large sections of our beautiful city that will never be the same again. The elites felt the pain in their hearts at this statement. It was true that the elites had won the war. But at what cost? Why are you all sad? Although the war gave us no monetary gains, it gave us something much more invaluable. Something that will stay with each and every one of us forever, and something that will make this guild unstoppable in the future. Everyone felt confused as to what the guild leader was hinting at, as they listened in rapt attention. The merchants have given us the opportunity to understand what it means to be a true elite. They have given us the chance to show to the world what this guild is all about. And for that I'm eternally grateful. Elites? The enemy forces numbered over 30 fucking million. How many of them do you see in this city now? 0. How many of us are still here now? Rudra let that question hang in the air for a while. As he continued, the day I created the guild, I had this vision to only let the best of the best players in the world into this guild. Players who could take on 100 enemies alone. For me, the definition of a true elite was only just this. A player who can take down 100 enemies. The merchants thought that replacing every dead with 100, they could win the war easily. However, while this strategy would have worked against any other guild in the world, we are the elites. We killed them 1, and we killed them 100 too, as we sent the merchants packing from our city. The elite members had goosebumps on their skin now, as they listened to Rudra's words, thinking what it meant to truly be an elite. Be proud, lads. As everyone who participated in this war. Everyone who kept fighting till the end. Everyone who sent the merchants packing. You can proudly call yourself a true elite now. Yes. Yes. You all are true elites. We are true elites. You have earned it. The elite members lost their minds as some cried while some cheered. But everyone could feel the adrenaline rush coursing through their veins. Everyone who participated in this war was worthy to be called an elite. Let the world call our chance cringe. Our success a fluke and our methods unlawful. None of them have the balls to fight us head on anyways. I say embrace it. Embrace the cringe of our chant. Embrace the fluke of our constant success, and embrace our uncanny methods. Let's give it the billions watching worldwide. Let's give them the loudest chant of all time. On my count, boys. At the top of your lungs. One for all. The entirety of the elite members shouted at the top of their lungs. All for one. Go elites, go! A deafening chant resonated throughout the city, as the elite members felt their emotions reach a boiling point. Rudra's speech made them feel like gods walking on earth. And they truly believed now that nobody could stop this guild of theirs. They felt proud to be a true elite. And the loyalty that the members felt at this moment towards the guild was boundless. // Today will be a 2-chapter day. This is a bonus chapter for hitting the GT target. Enjoy. // Chapter 642, the start of a religion. He knew that billions across the world had their eyes on this war, and that his speech here today was going to be played all over world media for weeks to come. This was the perfect opportunity for him to introduce the God of Death's religion back to Omega. He would never let go of free publicity. Rudra continued his speech. Although we have won this war, we have not won it alone. Let us cheer for our brothers from the Hazel Grove Empire and hail Emperor Cervantes for lending us support in such trying times. The elites will always remember such acts of kindness. All hail! Hail! The elites clapped and cheered for the brothers from Hazel Grove Empire who took arms alongside them in the war. We must also hail our brothers from the Church of Light for their support in such trying times. The benevolent Pope knew that Lucifer's plans could not be permitted to come to fruition. Hence he sent his bravest for our cause, and without their support, it would not have been possible. All hail! Hail! Rudra did not actually mean any of the words he said for the church, as the Pope actually owed him one, and did not dispatch the troops out of the kindness of his heart. However, he was just cleverly setting his next lines up. If there is one thing that this war has taught me, it is there is no greater evil in this world other than Lucifer. Although our benevolent goddess Beniger protects and blessed us from protection against the devil, her kindness doesn't allow for the Church of Light to actively take arms up against the devil. However, the devil must be stopped. Lucifer's rampage must end. Although he parades as the leader of the demon kind, he is not a demon. He is a damned fallen angel who has usurped the throne of the underworld from its righteous owner, the god of death, Hades. He is a fraud, a scamster, and a trickster. He is just plain evil. Rudra's words made the crowd stir, as everyone wanted to understand where Rudra was leading with this. No one knew that Lucifer had usurped the throne of hell from Hades. This lore was new to everybody. Yes. Yes. Hades is the rightful ruler of hell. The father of demonkind, and the god of death. Not Lucifer. That's Satan. Rudra reaffirmed his words, as the crowd was plunged into chaos at this revelation. It seemed like there was a lot they did not know about Omega. Rudra said, for 2,000 years the god of death was in a slumber. But glory to him. He has finally woken up. Spreading his arms, Rudra summoned the bone dragon, Durahal, and his entire undead legion as he activated the aura of death around him and looked like the incarnation of the god of death. A visual spoke 1,000 words. And Rudra's show of strength was to trick the world into believing that Hades was the source of all his strength. Many of you must have wondered, why do I, a light faction player, a believer of the goddess of light, use the undead as my summons? Why, even if I am not a necromancer, that I can wield the powers of death? It's because I accepted Hades as my lord, my protector and my savior. He is my god, he is my source of strength, and he is my religion. He is also a supporter of the goddess of light, and the two of them are the ancient gods of the righteous world. The necromancers only borrow the powers of death. They are nothing compared to what believers of Hades can achieve. And with his grace, all of us can do what I can do. Rudra let those words hang in for a second as he dropped a massive carrot in front of the billions watching worldwide. This was the biggest news ever, as he was effectively scamming millions into believing that they could become like him if they accepted Hades as their god. My god Hades wishes to declare war against Lucifer, to rid the world of that evil monster. But he is weakened after his slumber, and he needs our support to rise to the challenge once more. And I, Shakuni, the Pope of his religion, declare today, that beside this very church, in this very city, I will dig a massive hole myself and bury every single blood merchant slaughtered in my city, before building a church of death over their dead bones. Lucifer, your time is up. Now the question is, how many of you are with me? The crowd erupted in cheers. As for the elites who considered Rudra as their ultimate guild master, his word was simply law. Even if he went on and worshipped Lucifer, they would become worshippers of Lucifer. Hence, it was a given that they would follow. But the impact was massive globally, as Rudra's declaration basically made every single player watching feel like if they embraced Hades as their god, they could add the powers of necromancy to their portfolio. The light faction players hence rejoiced, while the necromancers of the dark faction just simply found the whole ordeal to be ridiculous, as they were rattled to the core. As Rudra picked up a shovel, the elite's worshippers already started to demolish the park that was made beside the Church of Light, as a massive pit was started to be dug. Within 30 minutes, a 50 feet deep hole was dug out in the plot beside the Church of Light, as the elites worked like ants to make the vision of their guild master come true. As the bodies of dead merchants were scoured from across the city, Rudra threw in Scarface's head into the pit first as he spat on him and said, "Glory to Hades." A graphic scene of millions of dead bodies being hurled into a pit was seen next. / bonus chapter for the super gift by Cervantes91. Please thank him in the comments for this one / Chapter 643 rewards and more. The forums went ballistic post Rudra's post-war speech as Hades and the Church of Death was the most searched terms on the internet. Rudra's way of mincing with his words made the players worldwide believe that accepting Hades as their god and religion, they could become stronger. Necromancer was one of the coolest classes in Omega, and it was the only class that most light faction players were jealous of. The ability to summon thousands of undead on whim. Who did not want that? However, for one to summon such undead and not face the penalties of being a dark faction player, it was a massive win-win. Hence, millions worldwide wanted to instantly join the Church of Death. Although there were many who took Rudra's words with a grain of salt. Coming out of the war where Rudra single-handedly defeated hundreds of thousands, if not millions of opponents, Rudra's image as a strong player was imprinted in everyone's mind, and hence everyone wanted to become like him. The support and the buzz surrounding the Church of Death was hence unreal, as all news channels only wanted to cover this news with headlines such as Shakuni's secret to power. The rise of a new religion. The war on Lucifer. And so on. The netizens themselves chatted a lot on this topic, as the last scene of the elites burying the dead merchants from across the city into a pit gave everyone goosebumps. This is it, guys. This is the thing I needed to take my gaming career to the next level. I am becoming a Hades devotee. So that's why Shakuni could summon dead creatures. He was the Pope of Death. Guys, this makes no sense. Why is the god of death a light faction god? Why do you assume that death must be evil? Death is a part of life. Such backward mentality. I don't care which god I pray to. If they can make me stronger, I will follow them. Guys, what will happen to the citywide event that the elites were going to host? Will it be cancelled? Are there any updates? Shikuni is just too cool. I want to become just like him. Agreed. Me too. Agreed. Me 3. Agreed. Me 4. Agreed. Me 4490. An information hunt started worldwide as people wanted to find out more about Hades and the Church of Death, and while most of the records were burnt, with millions of players scouring for information in countless kingdoms, there were tits and bits uncovered that gave Rudra's tale legitimacy. What Rudra had done was he had just created a big splash and started a small tidal wave. Now all he needed to do was to wait, and let it become a tidal tsunami by the time it reached shore. Meanwhile, Shikuni's POV. Rudra checked his stats panel to understand how much EXP he had gained through this war, as he assumed that it would not be less considering the amount of people he had killed in the war. Some Tier 4 giants. Scarface and the Shaman. 3 Tier 4 generals. Uncountable Tier 1 and 2 newbies, and at least 10. 000 or so Tier 3 warriors. Although he was fighting the war in a managerial capacity, and had hardly gone full out for a few bursts of fighting here and there, he was sure that he would still be the top kill secured of all the elites, as his DPS was simply that insane. However, even he himself did not expect the gains to be this massive, as he was shocked to see the status bar. Player name: Shikuni/Augustus One Knight. Title: Viscount of Hazelgrove Kingdom. Honorable Death Knight. Savior of Thal Village. Revered Medicine Master. Honorary Archbishop of the Church of Life. World-renowned. Heir of Augustus One Knight. Achiever. Dragon Slayer. King of the True Elite's Kingdom. First Cultivator. Supreme Overlord. Legendary Demon Slayer. Superior Human. Pope of the Church of Death. Class: Death Knight Mythic. Subclass: Explosion Artist. LVL: 280. Tier 4. Stats: AGI 12. 000 Vit 12. 000. Int 12. 000 STA 12. 000. PHY 12. 000 Mana 12. 000. HP 6. 818. 000/6. 818. 000. Unassigned stat points 2000. Hidden stats: Luck 52 to 100. Charm 99/100. Infamy 0/100. Status: heavily injured. Needs rest. Equipment: Lich's Ring. Concealer Mask. Sun God's Bracelet, legendary. Doom Armor, legendary. Death Knight's Black Shield. Pope's Token. White Lion's Kneecaps, dark gold. Supreme Witch Charm. King's Helmet. Weapons: Grim Reaper. Skills: Darkness Bind. Summon Knight Durahel. Wind Slash. Critical Absorb. Berserk. Darkness Blast. Death Slash. Eyes of Truth. Earthquake. Critical Block. Blink. Stormbringer. Swift Retreat. Illusiony Multi-Sword. Suppression Art. 3-point Stab. Twin Blade Hurricane. Twin Blade Cross Slash. Claymore. Overheard Slash. Solar Restore. Solar Flare. Solar Blast. Solar Descent. Solar Beam. Shadow Doppelgangers. Knight's Courage. Holy Lance Divine. One Leg Leap, rare. Cloud Feet. Circumvent. Class-specific skills: Death Knight Summoning. Death Knight's Aura. Black Ratio. Enhance Full Counter. Death Legion. Knight of the Empire Complete. Knight's Focus. Mount, Grey Wolf. Pet, Furball, Divine Nine Tails. He had gained a total of a whopping 40 levels, and now had a total of 2,000 unassigned stat points. This was the advantage of updating the golden ratio to the black ratio. As now, he did not need to worry about distributing his stat points evenly anymore, as he could assign the stat points as he liked. Rudra was an offense-oriented player, and hence speed and strength were way more valuable to him than vitality and intelligence. And although investing in all of the stats equally gave him a wholesome and sturdy foundation, the time was now ripe to divulge away from it. Adding 1k stat points to speed, Rudra added 500 each to stamina and mana to use up all of the 2,000 stat points. If other players knew about how he did his stats distribution, they would probably puke blood at the moment, as Rudra simply spent a whopping 2,000 stat points in a matter of 10 seconds. For most players, 2,000 stat points equaled a leveling journey of 80 levels. Yet Rudra just spent it like it was nothing. Smiling contentedly to himself, he thought the war wasn't a complete waste then, as after taking one last good look at his new stat panel, he logged out of Omega for a well-deserved rest from the game. Chapter 644: Dronacharya's Fate. He had hoped that despite him being inside the dungeon, the merchants would eventually win the war, and then when he would be dragged to court for a trial, He would make his grand speech in front of Scarface about how all of this was a big misunderstanding. He had already prepared his innocent speech in front of Scarface. But unfortunately for him, that opportunity never arrived. Rivera decapitated Scarface, and the merchants eventually went on to face defeat in the war. He shouted at the top of his lungs when the retreating merchant army went past the barracks. However, nobody stopped to unlock his cell, as he was left abandoned in the holding cell of an enemy camp that was fleeing the country. The next few hours were the worst for Dronacharya, as he thought this was the end of his gaming career. As with nobody ever coming to free him, he was essentially stuck inside a prison cell forever. His life flashed in front of his eyes, until he realized that he could always log out of the game and get some real-life help to bust him out of here. He was a trillionaire. He could easily afford to hire tons of teams to do the job. Or so he thought, until he realized that he was no more a trillionaire. He had invested deeply inside the war, and the anti-aero protection armor, and the other stuff had costed him his entirety of fortunes. He had nothing more than $3.4 million in the bank, and he needed that for emergency sustenance. Thinking about this, he once again fell into pits of frustration, as he madly tried to lash out at the cell bars. But it was to no avail, as no matter how hard he tried, he could not even put a scratch on the thing. The cell was made to detain Tier 4 war criminals, and a Tier 3 Dronacharya was absolutely no match for it. It seemed like his destiny was to spend the entirety of his time in this cell, until he heard a sound. Amitba, are you okay? It was Yum the monk, who was not present in the victory ceremony because Rudra had given him a special task, which was to track down Dronacharya and extort the last page of Demon's diary from him. Luckily for the elites, he was in a holding cell left abandoned by the merchants, as there could not be a better situation for them to leverage the page out of him than this. It seemed like the gods of fate were truly against Dronacharya, as everything he seemed to do backfired at him in the end, and for no fault of his own at that. Looking up at the sage-like monk who kindly asked for his well-being, Dronacharya broke into tears, as he felt like he had finally been saved. My angel, Dronacharya said, as he hugged the cell bars, and started to weep in front of him, who took 2 step backs to avoid being drenched in the salty water. It was his nature to be kind as a monk, but it did not mean he genuinely cares one bit about Dronacharya's well-being, as he was disgusted by the outburst of emotions. But being the monk that he kept a serene expression on his face, as he let Dronacharya weep in peace. After a while, Dronacharya said, "Thank you, monk, for coming to save me from my misery. Tell me the name of your monastery. I will donate 100 gold coins to your monastery every year, and I will even give new set of clothes." Although Yum was not a worldly monk who cared about money, he chuckled when he heard this ridiculous donation pledge. His monthly salary at the elites was 100,000 gold coins. It was this low only because he had nothing to do with the money, and the clothes he was wearing were unique, rated one of a kind in the entire game. It was not something the likes of Dronacharya could ever replace. For him to be offered 100 coins and new clothes, Dronacharya was just plain delusional. Yum said, "Amitba, you misunderstand. I am not here to save you." Dronacharya fell from cloud 9 to the ground in a second, as the elation from his face disappeared, as he started to look at the monk suspiciously. "What are you? Why are you here? I'm not into men. Don't think you can take advantage of me." "Shoo! Shoo!" Dronacharya snapped as he started to utter gibberish, but Yum had already figured out his weak point. "Amitba, I can free you, but in return I want any one thing that you have in possession with you, and you cannot refuse." Yum played his extorting card and Dronacharya was taken aback. Dronacharya was wearing precious armor, and although his weapons had been confiscated, he still had his accessories on him, which were all at least epic rated or higher. The loss of any one of them would be a huge economic blow to his already struggling self. "What kind of a fake monk are you? How dare you extort a poor criminal like me?" "Shoo! Shoo! Bad monk! Bad monk, shoo!" Dronacharya shooed away Yum, as if he was a wild animal. However, just as Yum started to walk away, he realized that without him saving him, he would most likely rot in the cell for a long time. Hence he reluctantly said, "Stop, monk. My good monk. My dear monk. I was obviously kidding. You can have my shin guards. They are dark gold grade. I will give them to you if you let me go." Yum stopped and said, "Amitba, a monk wears no armor. I have no interest in armor." Dronacharya understood his meaning and looked at his shoes. His shoes were made of featherweight iron and increased movement speed by 10%. It was an excellent item, and the monk probably wanted it. Although it was epic grade, Dronacharya had other good boots to replace it. Hence he reluctantly agreed to signing a system contract with Yum where in return for one item of his choosing, except his armor, he would free Dronacharya, and the two will part ways without fighting afterwards. Dronacharya did not even think that Yum would ask for something from his item space, as technically there was no way for him to know. Hence when Yum name dropped the item he wanted to possess. Dronacharya's soul went cold. Yum said, Amitabha, please hand over the page from Demon's Diary in your possession. Dronacharya stared blankly at Yum, for he could not believe his ears at the item the other party had demanded for, having paid an astronomical price for it. It was his bargaining chip as he planned to sell it to the highest bidder in the upcoming system auction and regain some of his wealth. But the other party directly attacked his most valuable asset, and he was left clueless as to how it happened. Obligated to fulfill the system contract, Dronacharya handed over the page with his hand shaking and his eyes full of hatred as he spouted venom against Yum. You monk! You scamster monk! I will kill you! You hear me? I will find you and kill you! I will never let you sleep in peace! I will come sneakily and cut your balls off when you are sleeping! You bastard monk! You hateful monk! However, Yum paid no heed to Dronacharya's words, as he kept the item in his system space, and opened the holding cell from the outside to keep his part of the deal, and freeing Dronacharya. Walking away from that man, with a serene expression and a Namaste Mudra. Yum absolutely did not care, as an angry barking Dronacharya followed him, like a dog chasing a car. However, when Dronacharya realized that Yum was headed for Purple Haze City, his legs went weak, as he had no courage in walking into the city, where the strongest army he had ever seen in his life fell short of victory only moments ago. Cursing his luck and the stupid system contract that did not allow him to hurt Yum for 24 hours. He rushed off into the woods, as he tried to recover from his depression. Dronacharya understood perfectly well that the monk could have only been working under the orders of one man and one man only. However, he could not even mumble the name without feeling his blood boil, as a scream could be heard from inside the woods that said, Damn you, Shikuni! // Guys, it's the last few days of the month, and we are only 200 GT short of the number 10 spot. Let's make it somehow, guys. It's the final push. Should we end the month in top 10 GT ranks, I will drop prip prices like crazy. // Chapter 645, A Crisis. What the hell? Who came in my room? Thought Rudra as he covered his eyes and adjusted to the daylight for a second. He always made sure to keep the blinds in his room closed when he went into gaming because he precisely hated such situations. But it seemed like someone had been in his room when he was gaming and had chosen to open the blinds. Rudra looked over his room and found Max's school books on his desk. It seemed like the little one was studying in his room for the past few days. Rudra chuckled. He loved Max too much, and due to the stressful time that he was recently undergoing in the game, he could not focus on Max much. The two hardly spent time anymore, and the kid was growing up faster than a puppy. Every time Rudra saw Max, something or the other changed about him. His baby fat was melting fast, and he was become a thin kid with a typical and grown-up now attitude. Since Rudra spent 14-20 days in the game, every time he came back to the real world once a month, he would notice that Max would have added 1 or 2 centimeters to his height. Rudra thought about this and laughed as he went for a shower to freshen up. His body stinked after near 25 days of constant gameplay, and although the gaming pod took care of nutrition, it did not take care of his body odor, as after every session he stank like he had taken a swim through the sewers. Thankfully this time, there was no black goo to clean off his body, as it was only his natural sweats and body odor that needed to be taken care of. Rudra wondered if he should complain to the Cuber Corp about making body odor eliminating pods, but then realized he was in no position to demand stuff from the Cuber Corp. He was just one of the billions that played the game. At this point in time, Rudra had no idea what he meant to the Cuber Corp, and what his true destiny was as a human. Meanwhile, Max came into Rudra's room and saw that the gaming pod was open. For a moment, he felt excited as he put his ear to the bathroom door and heard the running water sound from inside, meaning that Rudra was in the showers. He was about to scream his brother's name as he wanted to meet him so badly, when he stopped himself and looked at the VR pod. The pod was very different from the gaming helmet that he was given to play the child version of Omega, where the only thing he could do was learn social values and do missions like help the elderly or find the missing pet. It was an introduction to the VR world, but nothing like the game that Rudra played as an adult. But Max was really curious about how Rudra's side of things worked, hence, he sneakily positioned himself inside the pod, which was way too oversized for his body, and hit the close button. This was a blunder on Max's part to try this, but he was just a kid and did not know any better. And on Rudra's part to leave such a unique device in his home instead of his office where Max could not reach it. Rudra's gaming pod was one that was custom built for cultivators who had their mana circuit opened, as the pod collected the mana of the world and supported the user playing the game with the world's mana. The reason why Rudra's gamer's reflex was way past a common player's was because his body was not only fueled by highly nutritious nutritional fluids maintaining a peak physical condition, but also because mana was fed to his mana circuits, allowing him to tap into his potential as a cultivator. Very few pods have been made worldwide for special users by the Cuber Corp, and they were absolutely not meant for any non-cultivators to use. The moment Max is close, the needles came out of the pod's lower surface and embedded into his spine, sending a searing pain down his body while the iris skin failed. Had Max been in a normal pod, there would be no needles attached to his spine, and after the iris skin failure, Gaia would have ejected him out. However now, while he couldn't log into Omega, Max was fed mana through the needles in his spine. According to the mana circuit path of Rudra's body, Max screamed in pain, as the scream was so loud that Rudra heard it while being in the showers. As he could feel a foreign force invading his body, and a hot magma like liquid destroying his innards. Max's mana circuit was not like Rudra's, and unlike Rudra, it was not opened up either. Hence when mana was forcefully fed into a blocked mana circuit, and that too through incorrect channels, it caused Max a lot of pain and suffering. Rudra instantly came rushing out from the bathroom, wrapping only a towel around his waist as he panicked, and opened the VR pod through sheer strength alone. Max! Max! Rudra shouted as he ripped the steel of the pod's top and performed a feat of strength that was beyond the realm of mortals. As he looked at the blood inside the pod, he immediately picked Max up and saw the needles detach from his body. However, Max had lost consciousness at this point. Panicking, Rudra rushed downstairs as he screamed, "Ambulance! Ambulance!" But he did not wait for one. As ignoring his panicked mother, he rushed to the Gidge and put Max in his supercar and drove away at mad speed. Rudra crashed open his own gate, as he did not care about damages at the moment, and rushed straight towards the hospital that was a 2-minute drive, as he called the hospital while being in the car and informed them of his arrival. His driving was reckless as he skidded down the roads full speed, and the police bots of the upside had to warn him of his rash handling. However, Rudra only glared at them and said fuck off, as he did not give a damn at the moment. While he did not notice the result of his own anger, the police bot that he glared angrily at and told to F off was short-circuited and fried as it became dysfunctional. Rudra skidded down the hospital emergency sector and drove his car straight inside the emergency operation room as he lifted Max and rushed outside. A car suddenly drifting into the hospital made the guards and the doctors astonished at the ruckus. But the moment Rudra stepped out of it, everyone became silent and instantly focused on his emergency. It could be said that Rudra and Ethan were the two biggest bosses in Upside, and Rudra was to get the best of the best service no matter what his actions were. Hence as he put Max on the OT, a team of doctors instantly rushed to help. The head doctor asked, "What happened?" Rudra panicked as he stuttered and said, He entered my gaming pod, then blood from his spine. He is B+V. Help. Rudra was losing his damn mind to see his brother unconscious, and he could not even form proper sentences at the moment. Regardless, the doctors understood as they ripped Max's t-shirt off and took a look at his backside injuries. There were 10 small wounds on his spine as blood was constantly leaking from it. The doctors immediately got to work and started the emergency treatment. Rudra was escorted outside to not contaminate the area, as within the next 10 minutes his mom, dad, Ethan, Neetwit, and Naomi all came rushing to the hospital with others on the way. Although Rudra did not understand the nature of Max's injuries, he felt responsible for Max's injuries. He could not look his mother in the eye to explain what had happened, as he only prayed that the injury to Max's spine would not paralyze him. Ethan Gray did not need to be here. But the moment he was informed that Rudra had stormed into the hospital, he left his meeting and came to the hospital through his private helicopter without a second's delay, going in to ensure that no expenses were spared for Max's treatment. He thoroughly shook up the staff and the hospital team. Nothing could be allowed to happen to Max Rajput. Rudra absolutely doted on the kid, and any injury to him would devastate Rudra. // Special shout out to Cervantes91 for the 2 gashapons. Am absolutely speechless at the support you show my book. I do not have enough words to express my gratitude. Thanks to this, we are now only 50 tickets away from number 10 spot for GT. Holding strong at 11. 2 more days to go, guys. Can we make it? Unfortunately, due to having ongoing examination situation, I cannot provide bonus today itself, but I will sort it out by June 1st // Chapter 646 Rudra's Worries. Rudra had never talked rudely to Naomi before this day, but when she tried to stop him from pacing around the room and said, "Calm down, Rudra, it will be fine." Rudra simply shrugged her hand off his shoulder and glared angrily at her. Although he did not say a word, his threatening eyes delivered the message perfectly to Naomi, which was to not try and pacify him at this moment. Naomi was shook up to see the anger in Rudra's eyes, as she had never seen him behave like this before this moment. For Rudra, Max was everything. He was his bundle of joy, and the kid he loved more than anything else in the world. Although Rudra did not rank love for his family members. Should he ever have to choose between saving his mother, father or Max, he would choose Max in a heartbeat, as that was how much he loved him. Max was completely smitten with his brother, and looked at him as his idol. Tried to copy every small thing his brother did, and felt proud at his every achievement. It was the purest and selfless form of love that Rudra received from no one else. As he always checked himself, and pushed himself to be a better person, because he knew that he could not be a bad influence on Max. Rudra hence also loved Max a lot, and seeing his younger brother faint, he absolutely lost his mind, as his body would not stop trembling from fear. Rudra did not understand why Max tried to climb into his capsule. However, he could not bring himself to blame the kid, who knew no better, as he realized that it was his fault to keep the machine lying around in his room. He had already made up his mind that if the doctors could not cure Max, he would turn the whole world on its head, and force the Cuber Corp into helping him, as he did not care if his career as a guild master ended. For Max, he would burn his ambition to the ground, and even if banned, he would make Cuber Corp yield. Thankfully, the situation never came to that, as after 90 minutes of intense surgery, the doctors came out of the room with good news. Rudra, Mama and Papa Rajput swarmed the doctor the moment he came out of the ER room, as Papa Rajput asked the difficulty question of, "How is my son?" The doctor removed his surgery mask, and smiled at the family and said, "He is stable. He will suffer no permanent damage. Luckily, he was brought in within 5 minutes of the needless injuring his spine, and we were able to administer a stem cell treatment to sample and regenerate the dying cells before it was too late. Had he arrived even a few minutes later, he would have suffered from some sort of paralysis. But the initial signs look good for now. Of course, we can't be sure until a week, but he is not in critical danger or in the risk of being paralyzed. Although he is under the effect of anesthesia, he should wake up in about 3-6 hours' time." "Don't worry." The Rajput family breathed a collective sigh of relief as Mama Rajput hugged Papa, while Rudra collapsed on the floor crying tears of joy. Rudra was happy that no permanent damage occurred to Max, as he would not have been able to forgive himself had something happened. However, since there was still a chance that he might not be okay, Rudra did not celebrate too early, and after wiping his tears off, he profusely thanked the doctor, and asked him for his bank details. Rudra wanted to genuinely show his appreciation to the doctor, and had the doctor agreed, he was going to reward a full $1 trillion to him. But the doctor only laughed and pointed at Ethan Gray, as the signal was enough for Rudra to understand that he was well compensated for. Rudra looked at Ethan, and hugged the man tightly, as he realized how wise of a decision it was to shift to the upside, although he was forced to give a part of a stake in his guild. In the end, the things he received in return were simply invaluable. Had he not been living in the upside with world-class doctors only a street away, maybe Max would not have been saved in time. However, while the doctor was able to save Max physically, there was actually unseen damage in Max's body that was not detectable by science. Max's mana circuit had busted, and the kid was incapable of channeling mana because of it. Although it did not matter at all in the world they lived currently. The world was about to change soon, and Max would struggle once it did. Unknown to this travesty, Rudra had hope in his heart that everything was fine, not even having a clue that it was not. As he stood thanking Ethan profusely, Rudra decided to camp in the hospital itself to wait and see if Ronan woke up. However, since he had his car parked right inside the hospital, he decided to be more civil and drive it out for the sake of the decorum of the place. Smiling like a fool and apologizing to everyone while crying, the guild master of the elites backed his supercar out of the hospital and then came back in to take a seat and quietly wait for his brother to wake up. Meanwhile, inside the guild HQ virtual world, Amelia was swamped with work as usual as her task started once the war was over. Rudra, being Rudra, dumped all the work he did not wish to do on Amelia, as he logged out of the game without care, as she was left with the task of overseeing reconstruction of the city, and meet all the foreign guild masters who had swamped the city to strike a cooperative deal with the elites. The elites had displayed a lot of interesting technologies in the war, and the world was thirsty for the handheld pulse cannon blueprints. Everyone understood how big of a game changer it was to have such a weapon in their arsenal. But Amelia coldly turned all of them down when they could not strike a deal about acquiring the blueprints. The various guild masters proposed insane amounts of cash to secure purchasing rights to the weapon, but unfortunately for them, this request was turned down too. Even at the ridiculous rate of $1 billion for one weapon, Amelia refused to budge and sell a single piece outside, as Rudra had decided that the only guilds he would sell the weapon to were the elite subsidiary, the Grey International Guild, and the Russian mafia. Those two had answered the call for help, and Rudra never forgot about friends who came to his aid. As for those who shared his misery, he was generous to share his glory with them, while those who stood at the sidelines got nothing. Karna was in charge of the cleanup in Rudra's absence, and every single guild that had started to rebel in the last 1 month, after realizing that the elites might be dethroned, now trembled in fear, and scrambled to rush to the capital and mend ties. The power the elites had displayed showed that rebellion was akin to annihilation against this guild, and hence, they regretted their decision to stick their heads up against the elites, while they had still not fallen. Nobody expected them to come out on top in this war, and hence the elites got an opportunity to weed out all the unsavory characters from their kingdom, as the guilds subservient to them in their good times showed their true colors in the bad ones. Leading charge of a legion, Karna decided to put an end to these guilds himself, as although the major war was over, many small fights and roots continued throughout the kingdom, as the elites reasserted their dominance in the place. The time to consolidate their powers had came, and now it was time to stop the expansion and stabilize their gains, with a clear vision of allies and enemies, and powerful technology to support its core. The elites seemed to be heading into an era of prosperity, as the markets saw a mad rally of their stock, up 20% from their all-time high. It showed the sentiment the world carried towards the guild. The potential was for everyone to see in plain sight. // Special shout out to Savanthi for the 3 magic castles, and to Magnum 932 for the 500 coin massage chair. We have finally managed to hit top 10 in GT rankings thanks to it, and if we manage to end the month like this, it will be tremendously helpful to all of you readers with a privileged price drop. Apologies for the bonuses to be late, but I cannot provide them at the moment. // Chapter 647 time skip. Even after Max's discharge, Rudra chose to spend more and more quality time with his family and his brother, as he significantly reduced the in-game time of him inside Omega. Max seemed to have physically recovered after 6 weeks' time, however he seemed to be a changed kid after the experience. Laughing much less, and always distracted, he was not the bubbly boy that Rudra remembered him to be. Developing an interest in combat training instead, Max was obsessed with becoming stronger, as he spent his time reading about martial arts, and begging Johnny English to tell him spy stories, then to play video games like normal kids. Running, push-ups and bodyweight training were his new favorites, as his eating habits also changed. His craving for sweets changed drastically, as he decided to only eat healthy, and started to evolve from a fussy eater to a responsible eater, thanking God for every meal and cleaning his plate till the very last bite. The transformation in Max was massive, although everything seemed to progress in a positive direction. Mama Rajput and Rudra were heartbroken to see him suddenly grow up. Rudra tried his best to keep the atmosphere cheerful at home, and succeeded a fair bit in doing so. However, he was still the guild master of a very large organization, and had to work from time to time. Rudra decided to consolidate rather than expand, and told Amelia to start no major projects and cooperations in the near future, as the focus was on reconstruction. He himself did not delve into the secrets of the demon's diary much, as although he collected all of the pages of the diary, the moment he put them together, the first line on the first page of the diary read a text that said, "You must complete the book and find its cover." For the time being, Rudra had no idea where the cover could be, and did not want to divert energy into looking for it at the moment, as his main focus was on establishing the Church of Death, modeling the church exactly like the one in his memory from the ancient ruins. Rudra used pitch black marble and incredibly precious materials to start the construction. The estimated time to build the grand building was 4 months, and Rudra was patient in this time period, as he did his best to make the Church of Death as popular as possible. The plan was to have a grand opening and invite the Pope of the Church of Light to it and Emperor Cervantes, to show that a new religion accepted by the god and the state was at its infancy, and build from there. Hades needed a lot of worshippers to regain his power against Lucifer, and Rudra needed to start delivering those worshippers as soon as possible. At the moment, Rudra was unaware of how much his own power was about to rise as the religion would grow, as what he did at the moment was only to hold his part of the deal. Regardless, Rudra also realized that the buzz surrounding the Church of Death was unreal, as it was having a snowball effect and getting bigger every passing day. Everyone was interested in joining the religion if it meant getting a power boost. Currently, the only benefit there was to worshipping Goddess Bendiger was the occasional +1 boost in a random stat. Worshipping her for 10 minutes gave players a notification that said, "Heartfelt worship towards the goddess. Blessed with +1 stamina for 1 day." Although this was useful for newbies under level 10, no tier 2 or higher player would ever waste 10 minutes praying for a single stat increase. However, if Rudra's claims were to be believed and worshippers of Lord Hades could get the power to summon a single undead, then the whole ball game would change. Even for Tier 2 players, having the ability to command even a single undead was game-changing no matter how weak. They could be used as scouts for traps or momentary distractions to land a hit. The applications were endless. Should they get the ability to summon entire bone dragons, then that would simply be game-breaking. Although those with common sense understood that it was highly unlikely such a scenario would occur. But humans were rational creatures overall who loved to fantasize. It was because Rudra was the poster boy for the Church of Death that the buzz surrounding it was so unreal. Most people did not want to believe that there was no secret behind Rudra's success, and it was only his hard work and wits. They thought that Hades was Rudra's backer all along, and it was the reason why Rudra was the top dog in the game. But now that they too had the opportunity to go under the wing of the same backer as Rudra, everyone believed that even they could become the next Rudra and dominate on the world stage. With the VR Olympics only 2 months away, the hype for Rudra to Loki, the Church of Death, was growing every minute. Although Rudra himself was not going to participate in the 4th ever VR Olympics, the training regime and the camp he had introduced in Season 1 was still going strong into Season 4, with Karna now leading the charge. Japan dominated the world stage, with lots of elites, bagging medals and lots of events, and Rudra's personal participation was no longer necessary. Between Neatwit, Karna, Johnny, Fatty, SMG and Mediv, a total of 15 medals were guaranteed, which in itself were enough to put Japan over the line of being the top power. In the years since the first Olympics, the elites had become a household name in the country, with every year the recruitment season seeing more and more aspiring youths wanting to join the organization as a choice of career. The pay was excellent, and the glory surrounding being an elite was unreal in the country, as Rudra and the elders were more popular than even most entertainment industry individuals. In a blink of an eye, 6 months since the war passed by in a flash, and the construction of the Church of Death was complete. With only 1 week left to the VR Olympics, it was the perfect time for the launch, as every major player wanted to see what they could get out of the church, as it was time to perform in one of the biggest events of the year. Meanwhile, Dronacharya. Living a life of poverty was difficult for Dronacharya. Suddenly he found himself in a situation where he could not throw his weight around anyone anymore. His idiotic spur-of-the-moment decision to reveal his face to the world had converted him into prime meme material, as now he could not even walk a crowded street without 10 people recognizing him and laughing at his face. The situation got so bad that he needed to carry a mask around to not be recognized as the man who boldly claimed that he was the mastermind behind the elite's fall, and was now the joke of the decade. Had he been rich, he would have hired a mercenary army and walked the streets like an absolute mob boss to re-establish his credit. But he was no longer rich enough to do that. Dronacharya absolutely hated Rudra because of this, as every single day the shame he felt in having to hide his face reminded himself that it was all because of Shakuni that his life became so miserable. In his head, Dronacharya fantasized daily about how he was going to stick it to Rudra. However, the best plan he could come up with that did not involve money was making a funny drawing of Rudra with poop for a face and post it on the forums. But even that backfired on him, as the netizens remembered his ide and absolutely eviscerated him for daring to come back online. His photo of "I did this" on the battlefield was iconic, and the netizens used that photo itself and twisted a few things to create a meme that showed Dronacharya as a pile of steaming monkey crap and Rudra's face plastered over the battlefield image as it read "I did this." Although it was all stupid fun and games, for a prideful man like Dronacharya, it was extremely disturbing, as his mental psyche became a complete mess. Having no other roads left to go to, Dronacharya decided that the only hopes of him ever sticking it to Shakuni were only possible should he merge hands with the devil himself. Hence, he began his search for Lucifer. // Special shout out to Magnum932 for the 15,000 coin gashapon. Like, I don't have words to express how thankful I am for this, but I truly and deeply appreciate it. Guys, this month, we had an amazing golden ticket run, and it was simply incredible. Even as I write this chapter, we are still number 10. But the gap is short, and the author of the number 11 book informed me that he will be taking over last minute. Even if that is the case, I will still drop privilege prices massively because of the support you all have shown. So thank you to every single one of you who voted for this book. Unfortunately, guys, I have exams, and I will not be able to update like I usually do. The latest chapters of the book will hence temporarily be unavailable till the 3rd of June // Chapter 648, the opening of the church. Given the same height and a comparable structural construction, the two churches were designed to look like sisters. However, the vibes could not be more different. The Church of Life was made with white marble stones and had an open, serene feel to it. One would feel content seeing the structure with its back end having a reservoir of holy water and the residence of the bishop and the other paladins. The Church of Death was the complete opposite. being made of pitch-black marble stones, and designed so that the entry was very small compared to the internal structure. It seemed like the church was not welcoming to visitors. The backside of the church had a sacrificial area where a devotee may voluntarily choose to cut themselves and drop their blood on the plant of death. The same mysterious plant that Rudra had found growing at the bottom of the lake in the ancient ruins. Placed in a small pond in the back, it radiated tremendous energy and mesmerized anyone who saw it. Although there were quarters for paladins and a bishop, since Rudra had taken none of them, and yet they remained unoccupied. Inside the church was a large statue of Hades. However, Rudra did not depict him like the cold god of death from the ancient times, but rather chose to depict him as a strong and just sovereign as he sat on a throne with a magnificent scythe in his hand. It was the image of Rudra seeing him for the first time that was imprinted in his mind, as he tried to paint him in the same light. His statue carved from a very rare crystal. It costed over $700 billion of his own personal wealth to create. However, Rudra did not cut costs in that area. Right before the statue was a place where offerings could be made, as he kept that part of the rituals the same as the ancient times, putting a great sword made for decapitation, and a blood collection pool that would drain into the statue's feet later. The interior of the church was also lavish, and it was a good way to establish the dignity of the church or death. Today was the opening day, and many important guests were set to attend, with the world excited for its grand launch. Rudra had repeatedly tried to contact Hades, but the god was silent during the past 8 months, and had not contacted Rudra no matter what he did. Rudra was hence a bit afraid for the opening day, as he had no idea whether Hades would bless anyone with anything at all, or would all the hype blow up in his face. The only assurance he had at the moment was that there was no resistance from Benyager and the Church of Light, as they did not obstruct to Rudra constructing the temple, and the Pope even decided to personally attend its opening, which Rudra took as a good sign. Rudra was technically poaching a lot of believers from the Church of Light, and he could understand if Benyager became angry with him for this. But apparently Hades must have talked with her, as she showed no reaction to the birth of a competitor religion. Although Rudra did not buy that gods after the same things could ever become friends, he chose to believe for the moment that a negotiated arrangement had been met between the two. The forums had went nuts for the last couple of days regarding the opening of the Church of Death, as the buzz surrounding it was unreal. Within the last 2 days, a total of 7.9 million people paid the immigration toll at the Purple Haze City Teleportation Center, while 4.2 million more entered via the city gates. The revenue generated from this event alone was enough to recuperate 20% of the construction costs, and should the event be a success, then would result in recurring income for years to come. Thinking about it this way, it was an investment into cultural architecture that boosted a city's vibrance. The incoming visitors were shocked to see how much Purple Haze City had changed over the last 6 months, as the city had started to stand back on its feet again. Many modern buildings were constructed between the typical cultural buildings, as the city looked like a place that was undergoing a period of modernization. The architecture style of the newer buildings were like those of the late 1800s era, with beautiful vines and climbers adorning the walls of the construction. The elite government gave the citizens a 30% subsidy on material costs, and a 100% tax rebate should their house be destroyed in the war, to stimulate fast growth and reconstruction of the city. Every street had some ongoing reconstruction project, and overall the city had changed drastically from the last time one may have visited it many months ago. The tourists were hence mesmerized by the place, as many spent the 2 days in just touring the beautiful city and enjoying the exotic cuisine. Rudra had opened a free food and drinks bar in the city called the Victory Celebration, where Purple Haze City citizens could enjoy unlimited food and drinks all on the house 24/7. It was a very popular local and tourist spot, as the crowded cafe became a great source of joy for the locals, who thanked their king profusely for his kindness. Rudra's image amongst both the locals and the elites was akin to that of a god, and hence many Purple Haze City NPC were also interested in adopting the Church of Death, because Rudra was endorsing the thing. This resulted in the opening day becoming one of the most crowded days in Purple Haze City, as the military had to be brought out to patrol the streets and maintain civil order, with Emperor Cervantes and the Pope both being in attendance. The event was sure to be a grand one. The only question that remained was that would Hades bless the followers or not, with Rudra's reputation on the line. It was the million-dollar question that the world wanted to seek answers to. Meanwhile, Max had started to learn from Johnny English about martial arts and how to become a mercenary. Johnny had apparently taken a liking to the kid and was now teaching him the basic of hand-to-hand combat. Max was a fast learner and absorbed everything that Johnny taught him very fast. However, every single day at training, Max couldn't help but feel more and more mesmerized with Johnny's skills. Johnny was an expert in the art of throwing knives, and the in-game skill had been deeply imprinted into his real-life persona, as Johnny English did not miss a single throw, even in real life. Although it was mostly because of his insane luck in real life that every shot he made became more epic than he himself intended to. Poor Max, who couldn't distinguish fluke from skill, thought Johnny to be a god-level knife thrower. Even after trying very hard and keeping a balanced posture, Max could barely hit the target board from a distance of 25 meters or more. But Johnny could be eating an apple and be over 50 meters away. But with a casual flick of his wrists, the dagger would always land on the dead center of the bull's eye. Every day Max became more and more impressed with Johnny, and tried to push towards attaining his skill level. Although he understood that it was not a 1 day, 1 week or 1 month task to reach Johnny's skill level, and would mostly likely take him a lifetime of practice. With becoming like Ridra his ambition in life, Max wanted to learn from people of an equal skill caliber. In Japan, Johnny was a legend who was said to be comparable in power to Ridra, which was the reason why Max took him in as his master. His brother was too overprotective of him, and would not teach him the rough way, which was why Max did not approach him for things. He was at an age where he did not like being pampered and taken care of anymore, as he wanted to become independent as soon as possible. However, Ridra being the elder brother that he would prefer that Max rather played than trained at such a tender age. Ridra, who had seen much more life than Max, knew that he had a lifetime of grind ahead of him where nobody would accept him even if he wanted to play. However, right now, he was still at an age where it was perfectly normal for him to take life 1 day at a time. But having his mind dead set on the future, Max Rajput wanted to get stronger and get stronger as fast as possible so that he could become independent and stand shoulder to shoulder with his brother someday. His time to shine started now. / / and sorry guys. Although I'm writing this chapter on June 1st, you lot will not be able to access it till much later. It pains my heart to starve you all from the content, but I have no options with my exams ongoing. It's already me pushing myself to the very limits to write even one to Minton win-win. I will make it up to you all later in the month for sure. Once again, apologies / / Chapter 649, an interesting chat. Although the event was a restricted one, thousands of elite guild members still surrounded the structure in the inner city, as they being elite members were allowed to roam as they please. Moments before the grand opening, Ridra waited for the 2 guests of honor to show up. As Emperor Cervantes was the first one to arrive. Being the emperor of this kingdom, his standing was higher than even Ridra. Hence he stayed in the inner city in a guest room in the royal palace as Ridra hosted his stay. Accompanied by Patricia and his royal guard, he arrived the location in grand fashion. As every elite soldier on guard bowed when he passed by. Cervantes did not need any cool effects like Ridra to flex his charm, as his tier 5 power level and decades of being a ruler made his very natural being filled with exuberance and grandiose with a noble aura. As Ridra bowed and welcomed him, he nodded to acknowledge his greeting and then proceeded to scan the power levels of everyone present in the vicinity. His eyes cold and his face expressionless, it was hard to discern what he was feeling at the moment. Soon after Cervantes' entry, the Pope walked down the Church of Light from just beside the Church of Death, as he was escorted by the paladins and the cardinals of the church as he stepped inside a customary golden carriage that carried him 5 feet before he dismounted and walked inside the gates of the Church of Death. Unlike Cervantes, he had a bright smile on his face and a divine radiance surrounding him that made him look like a likable old man. However, just like Cervantes, the power he wielded was there for everyone to feel. Even tier 3 soldiers sweated in front of the pressure his smiling face exuded. As Ridra bowed to the Pope, he blessed him by saying, "May Beniger be with you," and patted him on his head. The Pope then proceeded to give a friendly nod to Cervantes, who pointed at the entrance of the Church of Death, and said, "After you." The accompanying guards and paladins stopped there as Ridra. The Pope and Cervantes were the only ones who moved forward with only one media coverage man, PewDiePie, allowed to follow to film the event. Ridra had thought long and hard about the opening ceremony, and he did not feel that ribbon cutting was any good, as it was a tradition of the modern Earth and not of the people of Omega, as he felt like he needed to do something more authentic. Walking inside, Cervantes and the Pope marveled at the architecture of the church and looked towards the massive statue of Hades, which gave them both a fear debuff that came as a shock to the duo. You have looked into the eyes of the god of death. Your fear or mortality reduces all stats by 2%. For tier 5 existences like them, who had not known the meaning of the word fear for many decades now, this was a new feeling, as the two of them quickly realized that Hades was not someone to mess with. It just his statue could put them into a state of fear. Looking towards Ridra with complex emotions now, the Pope said, "A wonderfully constructed church, worthy of serving a true righteous God." Ridra smiled at the compliment as he said, "Amen." The trio walked to the very foot of the statue as Ridra unsheathed the blade of sacrifice for the first time. The crystal clear blade shined with brilliance as it was exposed to the air. In the ancient times, the Grim Reaper was the ceremonial sword that was used to make sacrifices to the god of death. Hence Rudra needed to craft a new one for the resurrection. Wanting to make the blade iconic and super unique, Rudra decided that the blade be crafted from a rhodium crystal that was clear in color and forged by mixing with the corrosive black crystal and the mysterious blue crystal that they got from the ancient lands under lava to make a completely unique blade. The blade was forged by the Dwarven King himself and was his finest creation yet. A transparent glass-like looking blade that was extremely thin and sharp. Practically weightless. It glowed neon blue in darkness and turned black when exposed to light. A miraculous and mystical blade. Perfect for making an iconic ceremonial blade for the god of death. Going first, Rudra slit the palm of his hand with the ceremonial blade and let the blood drip onto a plate. Cervantes and the Pope looked at what Rudra was doing curiously as everything was carefully being live-streamed by PewDiePie. When enough blood had dripped, Rudra put the palms of both his hands on the blood plate as he let the blood soak all over his palms before walking up to the foot of the statue and grabbing the feet of the god of death with his bloody palms as he said, "O Hades, the god of death, accept my boiling blood as sacrifice and help me rid my country from death and disease." At this moment Rudra carefully activated his aura of death, as his body emitted large amounts of black fumes as when he stood back up. He looked like a changed man who was immensely more powerful, as if blessed by the god of death. Rudra knew that it was petty tricks, but for the billions watching worldwide, the visual effects sent their anticipation to worship through the roof as they could not wait to try it themselves. After Rudra did it, he brought out a new clean plate and waited for the Pope and Emperor Cervantes to follow. Rudra knew that slaughter of animals on the opening day of the church was bad PR, and killing in front of the Pope of the Church of Life wasn't exactly a genius idea. Hence he came up with this absurd ceremony to keep all parties happy. Being a warrior, Cervantes did not hesitate to cut his own palm and found out that the ceremonial blade was extremely sharp and clean as Rudra's blood had dripped right off it without even leaving a single drop on its surface. Impressed, he asked Rudra, "What's the name of this blade?" "Deathbringer." "A fine blade." Repeating what Rudra did, Emperor Cervantes also put his palms on the feet of the god of death, as his eyes widened in shock again after he received a blessing. Blessed by the god of death. Strength increases by 1 permanently. Although Cervantes said nothing, the way he looked at Hades and Rudra changed drastically as Rudra understood that something must have happened. When the Pope's turn came, he was a bit more reserved than the other two, as he did not like the idea of intentional self-harm. However, not to be bad sport, he still slit a single finger of his before touching Hades' feet. Even he was blessed by the god of death, and a half-forced smile came to his face, as for a moment, he let his real emotions about the ordeal slip. Rudra was quick to catch his forced smile, as he realized that he would need to have a talk with the Pope soon. But before he could say anything much, an ancient voice boomed in the room as Hades himself said, "You are born from dust, and you will return to dust. Binyagar and me are the two sides of the same coin. Send her my regards." Meanwhile, Dronacharya had made his way to the Dark Faction territory now. As he chased the myth about the demon's diary, he knew that if Rudra and the blood merchants were after the same item, it must be something special which could become his key to connecting with Lucifer. As his findings took him to the forest of the undead, which was the den for most NPC necromancers in the game. Sprawled over by spooky trees, ghosts and undeads all around. Dronacharya wanted to find a particular necromancer who specialized in summoning demons. As he sneakily made his way past undead without being detected. Dronacharya was an excellent player when push came to shove. His gaming skills were actually top-notch, however the only reason why he couldn't shine was because of his mindset and attitude. His crab-like mentality made him think that dethroning a star was the only way to stardom. Whereas he did not believe in building himself from the ground up. That was one of the reasons why he hated Rudra so much. As the guy came from nothing and skyrocketed to becoming the king that he was today. Cursing Shakuni, Dronacharya resolved his mind to take everything he possessed one day. His kingdom, his money, his guild, and even his beautiful elven fiancée. Looking at the necromancer's cave that he wanted to find. Dronacharya laughed as he said, "Kiki Shakuni, I'm coming for you." Chapter 650, a shocking progression. When the Pope touched the feet of the god Hades, he thought, "I will only ever accept one god. Even if my goddess Binyagar told me to be accepting towards your religion. I cannot see you poach away her loyal devots. The greatest power of them all is life. Creating a life is a miracle and preserving one is the ultimate kindness. I'm afraid I can never put you a god of death equal to my goddess." The Pope never thought that Hades would actually respond to his train of thought, but he did. Reminding that creation and destruction were the part of the same cycle, he actually replied to the Pope, and reminded him that he was equal to Binyagar and his place in this world was equally important. This was a warning to tell the Pope to lay low and wag his tail. As the first time, it was a pass by Hades. The second time, he would claim the Pope's head regardless of the fact that he was the Pope of Bendiger's religion should he ever dare to speak so impudently about Hades. The Pope felt chills down his spine, as the wrath of a Tier 6 god was not something that a mortal could handle. The stern warning was enough for him to swallow all the doubts he had about this upcoming religion. As with a half-depreciating smile, he accepted his fate. Ultimately, it was Bendiger herself who had agreed to the terms for Hades. Hence there must be some high-level arrangement between the two that the mortals were not aware about. However, the Pope was in no position now to defy the rise of the Church of Death in any form, as he had been schooled by not one, but two gods. Looking at Shikuni, the Pope wondered if this man would become his counterpart someday and lead an enormous faith. As with such a strong primal god as Hades, as the religion's foundation and a dynamic leader like Shikuni, it was inevitable to rise quickly. While Cervantes was also a little surprised to hear the voice of the death god. His reaction was tame compared to Rudra's, who could not understand why Hades replied to a foreigner and not his touch. However, he understood that it was a good thing that he did, as with the moment being live-streamed the entire world would not realize that the higher power was actually real, and the gods were more than just myths and legends that did not tangle with the life of mortals. The idea that Hades would always watch over his believers was a powerful belief. And Rudra quickly realized that if he played his cards right, it could become one of the central beliefs of his religion and help believers to always stay loyal to the death god. His mind spun wild fantasies about how he could conveniently spin this moment to his favor, and being the mastermind schemer that he managed to perfectly strike the iron while it was hot. Looking towards the statue, he said, "My lord Hades, thank you for your words of wisdom. I know you hear to the prayers and thoughts of your believers, and I'm sure the Pope is now enlightened by your kind words." Rudra spun the scenario as to the death god actually consoling the Pope about his inner demons and helping him regain mental peace, as his line, "I know you hear to the prayers and thoughts of your believers," was intended for the billions watching to believe that Hades listened to all their prayers. In the end, it was successful in creating the dramatic effect that Rudra had been aiming for, as the forums simply went ablaze. The forums. Holy Mother of Hades. Guys, did you see that? Hades actually spoke. A god spoke. Are we sure it's not some trick by Shikuni to make us all think that Hades spoke when it was actually just a hoax? OMG guys. I need to enter that church at this moment and beg Lord Hades for some super cool necromancy powers. I'm sure he will grant me my wish if I plead with a clear heart. A god with a proof of existence? Where did the ethos run away to? The gods in Omega are actually living and breathing? Are we Norsemen now? The god of death and the hoax of the century. There is only one artist here. Shikuni the puppet master, and all of you are his puppets. That ritual is so gory. I can never harm my delicate hands over it. The ritual is so manly. Only true men can do it. And behind the curtain opening is SUS. Although the church looks magnificently built, and the sword is just breathtaking, I don't think Shikuni will ever open it to general public. Because the day he does would be the day his lies are exposed. Replying to the comment above. Are you dumb? Shikuni needs to prove nothing to no one. He does not need fame or fortune. Had it been a nobody who endorsed the church, then I would never believe them. But it's the miracle man Shikuni himself. I only trust in Hades and Shikuni. Nobody else. Also look at the people present inside. It's Emperor Cervantes and the freaking Pope for Hades' sake. Open your eyes. Those are the two most powerful men on this continent. With Shikuni, make it 3. I agree with the brother's comment above. Shikuni is the best. He is the GOAT. If Shikuni is so great, why does he not open the church to common people? My question is, when will we be allowed to enter? Once real people enter, everything will be clear. Let us enter. Please, Shikuni. Let us enter the magnificent church. The forums were in a heated discussion about the authenticity of the existence of Hades. But the more they debated, the more the publicity was for Rudra, as the snowball became larger.